Okay, good morning. It is March 24th, Thursday, March 24th. And we have open session today, no open session later, right? That has been changed. So that was a command decision made. As we always do, let's please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Keep Madeleine Albright in our thoughts and prayers. May her memories be a blessing to all those. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah, as shared, we lost a very powerful stateswoman yesterday to cancer, and our first female woman Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright. And that is why our colors are at half-staff. Along, let's continue to think about what's happening in the atrocities of Ukraine with millions and millions of displaced people in the country, and let's give strength to our leaders of NATO as they convened this morning and work towards a solution. Okay, let's walk through our priority carol, and then we'll move on from there. Commissioner Frazier,
Okay, thank you.
what's in your mind?
Right out of the box. First, I was at a transit appreciation banquet, I guess it was, or dinner, and it was the first one that we've had, is what I was told. Went very well attended. And I have to say, you have to remember, through COVID, we still had the transit running. Those people were the front line. They were taking people on and off the buses, taking them to their doctor's appointments and to work and to whatever else that they had to go to. Remember, not everyone has a vehicle in Carroll County. Some people need this transportation to get back and forth. So I do appreciate everything that was done. And I did mention this last week, we need more drivers. It doesn't require CDL. They will train you. They need more drivers. And the more drivers they had, the more routes we can open back up again. So it was great to have that appreciation dinner. I was also at Eagle Scout Court of Honor for, let's find his name in here, Grayson Gardner. I go to a lot of Eagle Scout Court of Honors. I did before the COVID came in. I bet I did half a dozen or more every single year. This is the only second one I've been to since COVID, and because of that, and the one I was to just prior to this had to be held outside. So this one was held inside. It was great, and his Eagle Scout project was those oyster cages that they put in the bay to help restoration of oysters in the bay, which is very important. And being the environmental person that I am, I did appreciate his project. Nice job. And also, one other note about Grayson is that he had 96, I think it was 96 merit badges.
Wow.
That sash that you wear with the merit, his front and back was completely covered. He couldn't have fit another one on here. I don't know how many merit badges there are, but there can't be many more than 96. There really can't be. He might have got them all. So that was a great job. And Commissioner Wance and I were down in Annapolis yesterday. So I've been on the Mako Legislative Committee now for 2 years. This is the first time I've actually had the chance to go down to Annapolis because of COVID. But it was a nice, I'm glad I was there, nice reception afterwards. I got a chance to talk to a couple people that I wouldn't have had a chance to talk to. One of them was Robert Gurrell, who is the Executive Director of Interagency Commission on School Construction, long title. But anyway, I had to talk with him about building new schools because, we just put money out, and the state contribute their portion to Career and Tech and to East Middle. But let's face it, we talked about many times, we have 40 schools, and if the expectancy of the lifespan of school is 40 years, we should be doing a school year. And I brought this up to him. I said, we have 2 more schools that are in the key right now that I think should be looked at immediately, or at least as soon as this one's done, the next one should be started. What about the money for that? He loved that question, by the way. No,
I'm sure he did.
He did say that every school in the state has now been graded, I guess you call it, on what condition that they are in. He would like to see, now this is he would like to see, 30 to 40 schools a year new schools being built to replace these old schools that are in really bad shape. And he would like to see every school given a number. So let's say they're doing 30 a year, and our next school in ours is school 60. I'm just throwing those numbers out there. We didn't.
It'd be in the queue somewhere.
Right, but that way you would know that the next school, our next school would be 60, and in 2 years, it would start construction on that. There's a school after that was 61. We have two schools going the same year. And that's the way the state's looking at it, because they want to try to get this backlog done. They want to try to keep moving forward. And I said, that's a great idea, because we're looking at it that we're getting these two things done. It would be another 5 years before we could even look at having another school done. But they have it all rated, and they put it in there, and it's done like that. That's just a forward-thinking idea, and I hope the state goes with that. Now, they're going to have to put a slug of money, I think that was his word, slug of money aside to get all this done, but
What's his word?
it's needed. It is really needed. So, I mean, going to these things and meeting people in person and so forth really helps us out. It really does. So he's got Carroll County on his mind, and he actually did know what we're doing here with the buildings and so forth, which I was impressed with, because he's got to be looking at the whole state. And I think that's all I have. I can come back to me later if I forgot anything. I think that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wentz.
Oh, there was, no, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Well, good morning. Just to tag on to that, it was a good day yesterday. And I'm glad you had the opportunity to finally get to Annapolis. And I gave him a little tour, and so did Mr. Fowler. So anyway, we also got yesterday a new chart in reference to MOE for Carroll County Public Schools when it comes to what we're responsible to give them. So that's going to be interesting, because it doesn't quite match up with where we are. So we'll address that obviously as we move into this glorious time of year called the budget. Don't forget that tomorrow is Maryland Day. So wear your Maryland whatever you have.
Collage of colors.
Right. We got the best flag in the country, so
That we do.
fly it proudly. Dick, you'll probably talk about the Ag Board. 4 of us were there. I'll let you do that, because that is, we also were in Manchester last week for the MML banquet. Thank you to the fire department over there for serving us. Always good food. I also visited. I didn't get a chance to go to the banquet Friday night, but I made a stop. I didn't take a tour. I made a stop out to our transit building and talk to the folks out there and thank them for all that they do. They were very pleased to see somebody show up for a change out there. So get a chance, stop by. A lot of good things going on out there, and I'm sure the banquet was good. So I spent about a half an hour there talking to our personnel out there, and met the senior driver in the county. Yeah, she's a great lady. So anyway, good stuff out there. Pleasant Valley Fire Company had their 91st banquet Saturday night, and attended that, and it was very well done. Volunteer fire companies, as you all know, are near and dear to my heart for obvious reasons. And that leads me to my last thing, and that is we just took delivery of our first vehicle, brand new ambulance that has Carroll County Department of Fire and EMS on it. And
Did you get a photo?
yeah, we've got a photo. I just sat there and looked at that for about a few minutes, because it's been a long time coming, and we're getting there. Baby steps, but we're getting there, and that was the first sign that we are making progress. So, beautiful ambulance. It's sitting out at the Public Training Center right now, and take about a week to get it ready for service, but it'll be ambulance 259, and you'll see it on the street shortly, because it'll be the reserve for our 13 companies when they need to throw an ambulance in if one of theirs is out. So, got the brand new Carroll County Fire patch on it, and it's looking good. So, really proud of that. So, get a chance, stop out and stare in the window at our new ambulance. That's all that I had. Have a good weekend. It's rainy, so be careful out there. There's my public safety message for the day. And next week looks like temperatures are going back down again. So, anyway.
Okay, Commissioner Weaver.
Okay, as you mentioned, we had the annual meeting at the Ag Center, whatever night it was here recently. And I'm just amazed how far they've come in the last 7, 8 years as far as a group and what they're doing. Originally, I know Commissioner Wance and I were attending the fair, I think when we first got elected. And they pointed out quite a few things to us that we weren't even aware of at that time. And we started to have a commissioner serve as ex officio in their committee, and all of a sudden they have grown tremendously in those 8 years. And I give Bill Stem a lot of credit for that, and the commissioners served as ex officio with the board, but they are really doing a great job out there. So I just want to point that out where they are. And yesterday, we were at Recreation and Parks annual meeting. Mr. Rothstein and I went. And Chris, can you put one of the upcoming events up for us? Okay, we have one coming up June 14th. And this is the Therapeutic Recreation Day. And this is kind of an interesting day, but it's an all-inclusive event. Everybody is welcome. Going to have some unique things, I think, happening, and this is at the Fire Museum. So just be aware, this is going to be a really, I think, great event that day. Chris, can we keep going? And then we have the Walk in the Park. And Commissioner Boucher, I'm sure you're going to mention some of this in a few minutes. But they looked at one a month, I believe, in each of the parks, or I think it's 2 in, anyway, it's 1 a month. And we made comment to them that maybe if somebody walks in every one of them, we have a drawing or something for a grand prize. And I was thinking, a day with Commissioner Rothstein. They didn't think that was a prize, so they're still looking at coming up.
So maybe like a Fitbit or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, something a little larger,
So
better than that.
But no, it was great discussion. We brought up, hey, if they go through 3, 5, 10 of these walks, put their names into different drawings, incentivize folks for going out there.
Yeah.
And it was great dialogue that we had, a great opportunity that I think.
Yeah, that was the board. I mean, it was really a good discussion.
It was
And the first
wonderful
one
lunch.
kicks off in your
Did they have-
district at Cape Horn Park.
Reuben
Well,
sandwiches.
Did they have
that's
crab
actually
soup?
Commissioner
Yes.
Oh, it is.
As their districts are presently. That's Commissioner Wance's district by 10 feet. But
Okay. Go ahead.
Cape Horn Road.
District 1.5.
1.5.
And the last event is the Family Summer Bash that the Recreation Parks has, and this is July 15th, 4 to 9, and this is at the Carroll County Sports Complex. First time out. Moon bounce, obstacle course, dunk tank, and I think Commissioner Wance and Rothschild have agreed to go into the tank so far. Ooh,
What the heck?
Roth who?
Roth who?
didn't I say Rothstein?
Absolutely not.
No.
Oh, sorry
We'll be
about
doing
that.
push-ups.
Too many Roths here.
No, there's not.
Rothstein, I'm
There's
sorry.
Only one.
There's only one.
Wait a minute, that's a 3, 4.
Well, here, make up for it in the dunk tank. Face painting, live music, they have ice cream, food and beverages for purchase, field games for kids, cornhole. It's a lot more coming on this. This is the first time they've had this family summer bash, so I did volunteer a couple of our commissioners for the dunk tank
I
for
know
that
who's
one.
buying lunch next time. So, okay.
And
Keep going.
one other thing, Monday night I had a chance to speak to Wesleyan United and the Methodist men, and one of the guys mentioned unity doesn't happen by itself. It takes work, and that really hit home. Right now, as we're kind of divided throughout the world and everything happening, really made some sense that if we need to get unified, and it doesn't happen by itself. We need to work on this together as people. It was really hit me when he said that. So, just passing it on.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Boucher.
Thank you. Good morning. I want to start out with some new hirees for the county government. Donna Price, Collections Clerk, Collections Office. Catherine McCrumbie, Administrative Support, Tourism. And William Sassy, Assistant State's Attorney, State's Attorney's Office. Welcome aboard. As far as Mr. Swam, do you have any photos up here for tours that we've done? I'll back up. Here we go. I did a bridge tour with Chris Lenochin this week, and there's Stone Chapel Road. We'll go through some of these bridges. We're allocating money to restore these bridges. I want to emphasize how important this is. Stone Chapel Road right here was built in 1930, and that bridge is still standing, but there's a lot of rust in it. Thank goodness we have inspectors that go around and visit these bridges. We also did a tour of McKenzie Mill Road over Sam's Creek, their bridge. That was built in 1900. And think about that. We have bridges and services in this county that started out horse and buggies and are still in use. And it's so vitally important now we have the inspection to recognize and refurbish these things. Another bridge we toured was Shepherd Mill Road, and that was built in 1965. So we have a lot of aged bridges in this county, and it's very important that we have inspectors there. This shows what we're faced with. This is rust underneath the bridge. And if we didn't have the inspectors gone and recognizing these problems, we just continuously ride over these bridges and have no idea what's happening underneath. So I give a special thanks to Chris Lenochin. There are chunks of concrete falling out of these bridges. They're not at a critical point where they'll all fail, but it is so vitally important that we stay on top of these things. I want to thank staff for giving the tour. There's another prime example. As someone who comes from a welding industry, once that steel starts to expand like that, it is failing and doesn't have much life left in it. So we're going to remove all that and come up with some new ones. Then we have the students. There we go. I did the Navigating Difficult Waters tour with the Winters Mill High School. They put together to help students and parents know what resources are out there. I sat in this class with time management. These three young ladies gave a wonderful presentation. The young lady in the center, Emily Tadashi, she is going to be the student government representative on the Board of Education next year. So I just want to give a major shout out to these three young ladies that did a wonderful job in their presentation. And I think that's all we have. Oh, let's go to the collections office. Thank you for having this. I forgot this was in here. These ladies are responsible down in our collection office. A lot of people come in our building. These are the women you interface with. They're responsible for receiving payments on your property tax bill, and there's a list of all their names. I want to give them special recognition. Sometimes there's a lot of people behind the scenes that we don't notice or we don't give enough recognition to. These ladies are very devoted and do a wonderful job for the county, and thank you very much for submitting that. Thank you.
Okay. I believe the takeaway regarding the bridges is to ensure and provide confidence to our community
Yep.
that we have identified the concerns with these bridges and have prioritized their, the work that needs to be done. But there
Thanks for
is nothing
clarifying.
failing that people should be worried about on our bridges. Attended the Board of Aging and Disabilities yesterday. What was scheduled for an hour meeting, I think, went about 2 hours. And I'll tell you, these meetings are awesome. That's how we build our budget. We build our budget because of our outreach with the Board of Aging and Disabilities, with the ag, boards, with the Veterans Council, with all of the planning and zoning. I mean, this is not, and I've said it before, a Tuesday and Thursday on the dais type of event. This is capturing all the information from our community to build the budget to better serve our community. And this Board of Aging and Disabilities did not fail to demonstrate just that. They were extremely energetic, very appreciative of the entire engagement from citizen services and interaction with themselves. So although it took a little bit longer than expected, it was definitely well worthwhile. Same thing with the Rec and Parks meeting that you and I attended yesterday. And besides having wonderful food out in, out at the park, out at Bear Branch, it was, again, really good engagement and understanding how we are to resource and spend certain dollars on the different parks. That's how we build our budget, by attending this and by understanding the priorities. The Veterans Council, same thing. The transportation, the veteran support officers, We do have the May 15th event coming up, and that's happening, in a little over 6 weeks. So, really looking forward to a great event on Sunday, May 15th at the Farm Museum. Yeah, Commissioner Wentz, you mentioned the ambulance. The reason for the ambulance and the reason for where we're going is because of our willingness to participate with the volunteer fire and with the ESAC and all the others to figure out how to budget and how to resource the requirements. So kudos to all of us in all our participation, to making Carroll County the best in the state. Nobody knows Carroll County better than Carroll Countyans, and the more we have the ability to reach out to Carroll Countyans through all these boards and commissions, the best we're going to resource Carroll County. So I'm hoping Barry Glassman hears that, because it is his birthday, and that's his birthday message from me to him, and I think from all of us to him, as he is a friend of my colleagues and I. So happy birthday, County Executive Glassman.
I gave him a hug last night.
You did? Okay. That was special. Yeah,
He's tuning in this morning.
Okay. With all of that said, let's move on. We're going to be a little bit out of order, but it's all good. We have fortunate, the ARC of Carroll County wants to have a conversation with us on what their requirements may be walking into the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you.
So Commissioners, this begins your agency hearings for the FY23 budget process. Today, we have a long list of one for you to consider.
Long list of one.
So, turn it over to Don.
Good morning, Don.
Well, good morning. Good morning, Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to be live. So I've missed the opportunity for the last couple of years, but I've always appreciated the opportunity to come and talk a little bit about the ARC, and have greatly appreciated your all's support of our organization and the people we support there. This morning, I'm coming with a one-time only request connected to the budget process. We are seeking $28,656 in one-time only funding to purchase a wheelchair accessible van. We have a home located up in Tawnytown. Well, actually, we have 3 homes, but this one particular home supports 3 women, and 2 of the women were unable to return back to their day program, largely because of what's happened with COVID. So the ARC needed to step in to support them so that they have, an agency to help them connect with activities during the day. Our mission, as you well know, is really to support people in their individual pursuit of a meaningful life, and connected to that, we really want people to be engaged in our community. I really appreciated hearing earlier all the wonderful activities and all the wonderful things that are happening in this county, and our folks like to participate in those things. And well, we don't want anybody to feel isolated at their homes. 2 of the women do need to use a handicap or wheelchair accessible van. So it is important that we have something for them to use there. The van that services that home currently is 25 years old. It has seen its useful life. We spent an awful lot of money recently, or in the last couple of years, on maintenance to just keep maintaining it. And I do worry that one day it's just going to give out. And I hope it's not when they're on it, because that would be unfortunate. We, as I mentioned, have 2 other homes in that area, so it not only would be for them, but it would be in backup to those other homes, and some folks there in those other homes have mobility needs. We were able to apply for and receive a ARPA grant for $20,000 to help with our transportation. We worked with Citizen Services early on, and Celine and Debbie Stanford from the grants office. We have a CDBG grant, and we were hopeful that maybe we could reappropriate some funds there for transportation, but unfortunately CDBG has a hard no in purchasing vehicles. We then looked at some other funders that we've worked with over the years, the Able Foundation, they weren't interested, as well as the, I'm drawing a blank on the other.
Is it Weinberg?
Weinberg Foundation, thank you. And they were not interested in this project either. But we were fortunate with having some ARPA funds. So we have $20,000 towards the purchase. The ARC is able to work and assume all the operating costs with insurance and maintenance and things like that. It's just that cost is it's expensive. I did get a quote that I think I included from FR Conversions, a local company. Yeah, they've been really great to work with, and I'm happy that we do have a place like that in our community that we can make that purchase. So that's my request, is for part of the funds to purchase that van to help the ladies get out in the community more.
Okay. Yeah.
Is this van used every day, all day long, or?
No, I wouldn't say every day, all day long. Typically, these ladies, maybe during the day, they'll go out and do something, a couple of times a week. As I mentioned, there's some other homes in the Tawnytown area that will be used to help back up vehicles at those homes. So probably it would be safe to say it would be used probably most every day, but not all day long.
So is this, I'm just throwing something out there.
Yeah.
Something that our on-demand transit service could provide, or it's not
Well,
not good enough?
yeah,
not enough?
one of the limitations, and we use Carrollton quite a lot, and they are wonderful. Is the weekends is a challenge because they don't operate during the weekends, and then the evenings it's a bit tough. And frankly, the women, there's some high support personal care needs that two of the women have, and so I it's a little easier to have the
Sure, okay,
kind of customized transportation. Yeah.
gotcha. All right, thank you.
The prices are different on what's, on this form to what's being asked.
Yeah.
One's 28,000 something, one's
Yes.
27.
Well, so when I put that in, I was working off an older quote. When I first began the process, I had contacted the purchasing office here, and they actually received a quote, or I guess they had something. I'm not sure how recent it was, but they said they had a sample quote. So I used that number, and unfortunately, I did not go back and correct it. I should have done that.
So, no, that's okay.
yeah.
So which one's correct? Is it?
It would be the higher number,
Okay.
fortunately.
I was hoping for the lower number.
That's always the answer.
Yeah.
No, I
Kind of knew that.
Yeah.
Thanks for clarifying.
Going back to the county used vans, you're saying they're not available on the weekends?
Not that.
Not no?
Yeah, no, not that I'm aware of. Yeah.
Double negative.
Yeah.
Is there feasibility to get the van to be available on the weekends? Either with a driver that's there, like the van could be parked up there and if necessary can be used, in a partnership?
Through Carroll.
Yeah, through CATS?
I don't
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean-
That's,
You know, instead of spending $28,000, if we try to do this for, 6 months or a year and see it works, because you said they're not using it all the time, of course. It would just be a van put in a parking space unless used, and then they would be licensed and, and just come underneath the contract of CATS. I don't know.
I had another idea, it just popped in my head after you said
Yeah,
that.
please.
But General Services has vehicles and so forth for the state that can be used, and actually I mentioned this at our local management board meeting a while ago with some contact information. They have vehicles, and I don't know if they have anything that would suit you, I don't know. But I would think it'd be worth reaching out to them to see if they had something, and then it would be free.
are they wheelchair accessible?
I don't know all
Okay,
that.
Okay,
Yeah.
But they have
yeah.
some.
yeah.
Yeah, just reach out to them and see what they have. They say, no, we don't have anything, okay. But they might have something and it's free.
Right.
Now, from an insurance, what would you envision, kind of from an insurance standpoint?
Well,
Would
if it
we
was-
need to insure?
good
How
point.
would we?
Well, how would
Department of
you-
General Services, if you went that route,
Right.
the State Department of General Services has lots of stuff to give away free.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and so it would just be given.
The
to
general
you.
services statewide?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I've
State
checked that
Department.
a couple of times.
Okay.
And the times I've checked, they didn't have any vehicles available.
Okay.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was brought up last summer,
Right.
by the secretary to us, that there's a lot of equipment down there, and it's not always gonna be there. It's kind of a rolling inventory, so if it's there, it's there, and if it's available, it's,
Free is better than
Yeah.
whatever.
Oh, absolutely.
But,
Yeah, when I last looked, there
yeah.
was there was, the closest thing, there was a golf cart.
Yeah.
That was,
Right.
Low mileage though.
yeah, it was, it needed a little work.
So,
But yeah, we do check from that. I'm on their mailing list. I do
Yeah.
get,
Okay. no, that's good.
yeah.
What's your timeline here, Don?
I-
'Cause
it'd be nice by summer,
Okay,
to
I
have
just wanted
something
to
in
make-
place. I'd probably, if we could, I don't know what the lead time that FR Conversions would need. I imagine, given the state of where things are, they'd probably need several weeks. So it'd be, as soon as we could
Okay.
get some kind of direction, that I could place an order with them.
Okay, I'm just curious, yeah. I was just out there and looked at the whole facility. They're building ambulances now, which is unbelievable.
Yeah.
But you're right. What they're doing out there is just it's crazy. So they've got a bunch of those on the line, so, hopefully they could push you ahead if this goes through
Yeah.
for the local
That'd be
guys. I
good.
mean, there should be some local preference out there, so,
yeah, but they are doing
yeah.
national.
Oh, yeah.
Shipping them all
Bills.
over the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
As they get blown up in Ukraine, they're replacing them as quickly as they can.
I know that there's a lot of
Seriously.
organizations that support people with disabilities in Maryland that have
Right.
purchased and are pretty happy with their.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I don't know if it is feasible to using CATS and having an arrangement,
CTS.
or CTS, I apologize.
CATS was years ago.
Okay, CTS. But it may be worthwhile looking into.
Yeah, I can-
Because if it's, saves us $28,000,
Sure.
and
Oh,
it's an arrangement that's already made,
I can talk to Crystal and
Yeah.
ask her if there's some, if there's some ideas or some way
Yeah.
that could happen.
So, okay. Any other questions on this? Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Don.
We will have 2 more sessions for you, each with more than one, though.
Something to look forward to.
Okay. Are we going, I apologize, we're going right into Mike or into
Yeah.
Celine first? Okay, Mike? Okay. Come on, Mike.
morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning. First, I want to say it's very nice of you to tear yourself away from the plush office you have down in Annapolis to come up to see us.
Yes.
Thank
That's
you.
the third time I heard about this
Spacious
office.
digs,
Oh, you should see it.
You ha- you
I
have
don't
to
wanna
see
see
it.
it.
You have
Yeah,
to
you
see
do.
it.
It's
That's all I have to
amazing.
say.
getting your money's worth.
He was truly impressed by your office.
Go ahead, Mike, sorry.
That's a lot of sarcasm there.
Yeah, it's good to start light because,
It's gonna get
when you
heavy.
get into it, it's, but, winding down, crossover was Monday, so it's a big date. This is just my own personal observation. It seemed like there were a lot of cross-file bills that only made it through one chamber.
Right.
So there's still a lot of work to be done on a lot of these bills. So let's kick right into it. So the redistricting, you're probably all aware, I think we talked about this last time, the extension of the primary and the candidate filing deadline. Looks like early voting's been established as well, July 7th to the 14th. I thought that this week we were supposed to have the first decision on the congressional maps, but haven't heard anything about that yet. There's some press reports about the Republican arguments in the state legislative case, but really no details yet on that. So as always, the MAKO initiatives,
And
pretty good
just-
news
just
on these.
Another note on that, Mike.
Yes.
We heard rumors yesterday in Annapolis that they're also looking at August and perhaps as late as September for the primary.
Really?
Maybe, but then apparently it gets a little, wait for it, wonky because of the overseas ballots. That, we were talking about that last night too down there, because that has to have a certain time period. But the point of it is, there exists the possibility that it could get pushed further.
Yeah, because when you think it through, you've got the initial suit. So the suit can go one of two ways. Either the maps as established in the legislation remain, or they get thrown out. So then there is an alternative set of maps at the Governor's Commission, but that doesn't mean that they will automatically be accepted.
Correct.
Maybe they'll start and redraw again. So, yeah, this thing is really up in the air.
Yeah, it's
No question
crazy.
about it.
Anyway,
So I feel sorry for candidates. I feel sorry for election boards, and frankly for voters. It's a challenge, I tell you.
I say just let everybody where they are for another 2-3 years, and then, by that time they should have it worked out. Okay, move along.
On another note. So the MAKO initiative, yes, so some pretty good news there. We talked about the highway user revenue in the House last week. The Senate still has not taken it up, but it sounded like in our MAKO report yesterday from the MAKO director that there's a little bit of sympathy from the senators about this, and that maybe they'll add on to what the House has already done. We said before they didn't move any bills before crossover, but they do have something in front of them now to work from. So hopefully we'll wind up with more. I think the way Michael Sanderson described it yesterday is that the municipalities have done really well, and they are almost at a 2/3 restoration. And if we could get 2/3, even though we prefer full, if we can get 2/3, that's a great win. So more to come, more to come. The threats against public health official or hospital staff member, that didn't get out of committee, but there still is the other bill, Senate Bill 956 and House Bill 1409, which basically just adds chief health officer to what is already a set of protections for elected officials. So that did get out of the Senate. And then I think I mentioned to you before the cost-sharing bill for the election boards has passed and is on to the governor. So that's a good thing. That 50-50 split for the state and the local election boards is now enshrined in law, or will be shortly. And last, the emergency service transport reimbursement, that went through very well. So
think it adds $25 per year up to a maximum of $300 per reimbursement, and it adds in private ambulances as well. So that's a win for us, at least in the Senate. Don't expect that we'll have any issues in the House with that. But it's a silly season, so hard to know. So the local bills, I'm kind of disappointed. The criminal history records check bill did not get through the House committee. And in talking with Delegate Rose, she indicated the subcommittee chair was concerned about it, and in her words, that we won't hire truck drivers. So this is kind of really interesting, because this is the second local bill that's been, I'll say, interfered with. The delegation had a bill to increase the salary of the school board, but there was also a reduction of the student member to 1 term. I think there's no limit on the number of terms now. They wanted to limit the student to 1 term because there's a scholarship associated with it, and they wanted to be able to have as many kids come through and share in that experience. Well, apparently the vice chair, who is the subcommittee chair, that had that amended out of the bill. So this aspect, and actually both of those delegates are from Prince George's County.
Right.
And I think the ironic thing on this is Prince George's is one of the counties that has this exact authorization.
Right.
Right. We took the language from what's already in law for
Yeah.
10 other counties.
And that's disturbing. That,
Yes,
you know,
it is.
because I feel like we did our due diligence and exactly what you said, and that's you know, what I'm hearing too, is that the Prince George's County delegate, you know, strong-armed this to death and didn't allow this moving forward. Don't know what else we could have done from our role. You know, I feel like this is a very important bill for all the right reasons. It was a catalyst from an event that got us to where we are, and yeah, I mean, this is a rough one, you know, for at least for me, for the good order and discipline of Carroll County, that we are confident that we're hiring the right people, and that we have systems in place to have appropriate checks. I mean, and then you got this Prince George's County who has this in place, you know, saying no. I mean, I don't get it.
Yeah, so it passed the Senate, so we do get a second bite at the apple. We spoke to Senator Reedy yesterday, so I'm going to give him some additional details, not only about what the bill does, but also how it's implemented in Carroll County. These checks are not initiated until, well, they're initiated during orientation. So the person has actually been hired and is being onboarded when the determination to make this check is made. So I think that's important. Clearly, the delegate doesn't understand there's a very tight labor market. Certainly not in the business of hiring people to fire them. And when a background check is done, if something comes back and it's not germane to the job duties of
Right.
that individual,
Right.
who cares? So we still have an opportunity, I think, to hopefully
hope so.
clear up some of this.
You should have been arguing that day when the bill was being discussed.
Well, I did.
Because they are all very good points.
I did.
I know, but you couldn't engage.
Well, it was on Zoom.
I know.
That's part of the problem.
It's just frustrating. I
Part,
mean,
part of the problem is the message down there too. The message isn't clear from the people it should be clearer from.
well,
So I just,
I mean, is there precedence for bills like this, local bills not getting through? I thought that local bills,
Generally, there is local courtesy.
Right.
But it's not.
Yeah, that's the word.
It's not.
not this year.
It's not in stone, right? I mean, I've seen bills put forward that run into trouble. So it's not unheard of, but these are kind of innocuous
Yeah, there's
bills.
nothing contentious, and it's, again, local courtesy should be, let's
Yeah.
get, so the second bite of the apple, whatever I think you need from us to continue to make those arguments like you just did, I would appreciate.
Yeah, the difference now is that the testimony is sponsor only, so it's solely on Senator Reedy to make
Okay.
these points. So
Okay.
I'm gonna give him a lot of
Yeah.
ammunition.
Good.
You know, right now, the county has the authority to do these checks
Frustrating.
for specific job areas.
Yeah.
This bill would simply say you're authorized to conduct for prospective employees and volunteers, and maybe we need to reemphasize the volunteer part of it. I think that's the one difference. So another avenue could be, I mean, if we really want the volunteers included in this, is to say, look, if you're not gonna give us this additional authority, I think you're wrong not to, but, you know, amend it to what we have now for our prospective employees, but add the volunteers on, because that's really the impetus, I think, behind the bill. So anyway, that's
Yeah.
where that stands, so we'll continue to work
But
that.
once again, I'll emphasize that if Carroll County had its own constitution, we wouldn't be dependent upon elected officials that don't answer to us to make these decisions for us.
Let's see, so I think for HR, a couple of bills that were of concern were the COVID-19 occupational disease presumption, and then the workers' comp presumption for 911 specialists. So neither of those bills got out of committee, so they are goners for this session. The FMLA bills, you remember there are two of them. There's a Senate version and there's a House version, and they are markedly different. The House version, the chair amended that bill to be a commission, put together a commission to study this program based on the economic changes that have occurred since the 2019 or 2017 task force that looked at this. So I thought that was a pretty wise step to take. The Senate has moved forward with their version, and the only thing they really did was amend the contribution split. In the bill, it was 50-50. Now, the employee is obligated for 75%, and the employer, or the county in this case, for 25%. So, the Senate bill passed, the House bill passed. The Senate bill is now in the House today, having its hearing. So, obviously, a lot has to be done to bring those into unity. So, we'll keep an eye on that one. The bill that would require prevailing wage to be paid for your HVAC, plumbing and electrical, all the mechanical systems in your buildings. It applies when the project is funded by 25% or more state funds, and that would extend for the life of the system. So this is clearly a nod to labor in an election year, to add that. The opioid restitution fund, thankfully, was passed by both chambers in its agreed upon form. I think there was heard some concern that the General Assembly may want to start playing with the numbers, but it's as per the agreement that the counties in the state agreed to on that distribution. A landlord-tenant bill that has moved in the Senate would provide for a stay while a tenant, a stay of eviction while a tenant was waiting for a determination of rental assistance. So again, that has passed the Senate, not moved through the House, but very likely to. The body camera bills that we've been talking about. So Senate Bill 31 passed. That was Senator Sidnor's bill that would sort of set some guidelines around the release of camera footage. And the intent was to prevent someone from coming in and just casting a wide net. I think as Michael Sanderson described yesterday, coming in and saying, I want all of your body camera footage for the last 90 days from all of your officers. And then hire 4 attorneys to spend a couple of weeks going through all of this footage to redact things.
It's expensive.
Very expensive and time consuming. So that was what that attempted to do, as well as limit some of the things that victims, portrayal of victims and people who were actually, who were under indictment from going in and doing that. So that passed the Senate. There was supposed to be a hearing yesterday. I'm not sure if it went through. That was the Senate bill heard in the House Judiciary Committee. Initially, it was to be heard yesterday with a vote today. I don't see it on the voting schedule. I did pass something along to delegates Shoemaker and Cox who were on that committee to remind them that that's a good bill for us. So I'll keep an eye on that one. And then the other bill is Senate Bill 558. That is still being considered, even though it didn't pass. It's still being considered because, as you know, just because the crossover doesn't mean a bill can't come back to life or the rules can't be changed to move it through. So this one, it takes a little different tact. That's the one that sets up a statewide repository for the footage, establishes the standards for releasing the video. The state would procure the cameras and the supporting systems. There's an amendment that would allow those counties and municipalities that have a program in place to continue. Also, apparently, there are amendments in there that will include all the provisions from Senate Bill 31. So the other thing it does is clarify that the local governments are the custodians of that material, and they'll have some say on the procurement of the cameras. That will be left completely to the state. So we'll be watching that one too to see how that one gets maneuvered through. A couple of environmental bills. I think the PFAS bill we talked about. It's not a buyback of existing foam, it's a take back of existing foam. So if a fire company has firefighting foam that has its PFAS, they won't be reimbursed for it, but at least the state will take it and dispose of it. So they're relieved of that expense. Then, of course, they would be obligated for the purchase of replacement material. And then when there's a transfer or a sale of turnout gear that contains this material, there simply has to be a notification that goes along with it. So that one is passed. One we've been watching is Enforcement Authority with the Department of Environment. You know, there's been a lot of concern that the Department of Environment is not doing proper enforcement on their permits, mostly clean water enforcement. This bill increases the fines, adds administrative penalties. The department has to notify the AG when they issue one of these penalties. One of the concerns, or two of the concerns in here were initially willfulness of an act was considered in the legislation. It was taken out. As I read the bill, it's still in there, but it's only the consideration of willfulness among a long list of other considerations. So I think MACO is working to make that a little bit more all-encompassing. And then it doesn't indemnify individual employees when one of these, let's say a spill, a wastewater spill occurs. It doesn't necessarily indemnify them. So it's still working to try to get that at least in the House bill. On the education side, a good thing happened with systemic renovation projects are now considered an eligible cost for state funding, and regardless of the cost of the renovation. So that's gotten through the Senate. That's a good thing. And I think that's it, right?
You okay?
Yes.
Any questions? I do have a comment. The comment, Commissioner Boucher, you made about charter government, I understand, but I also believe playing within the lines and having the ability to attend MACO, and very proud of Commissioner Wance being on the board of MACO and Commissioner Frazier attending every Wednesday, being a part of the commissions, understanding what the requirements are, goes a long ways. So unless we're willing to do that, then, you know, we should expect things. And if you're not willing to do that, then we should expect that people are gonna make decisions for us. So having a open dialogue with our legislators from all three districts at this time, 5, 4, and 9, is important. We may not agree with our legislators, but it is very important that we have the ability, because we all have one of these, to pick up the phone and have those conversations. Sometimes we're in listen mode more than others, but that's okay. It goes a long ways. That's where we're gonna make a difference, not about charter or not charter. We have discussed this throughout the last 3 years, and we are very comfortable with the form of government we have to serve our Carroll Countyans. And that's where we're at here in whatever date this is. But the importance of understanding this is not a Tuesday and Thursday at the dais position is the most important role that we have. So you can talk about charter all you want, but that's the facts that I believe. This is a 24/7, do the job all the time.
Well, I appreciate your comment, but the point I was getting at is we have elected officials in other jurisdictions that don't answer to Carroll County citizens making decisions affecting only Carroll County citizens. That's my gripe.
Well,
I think most people feel the same way. The fact that a publicly elected official from Prince George's County kills a Carroll County project just doesn't sit well with me. It don't sit well with a lot of people.
well, I believe having the conversation with our legislators openly and candidly, having them open, have that ammunition goes a long ways.
Oh, I will agree 100%, but the point is, it's not our delegation that killed this. It's elected officials from other jurisdictions.
I don't know. Like I said, we gotta do better, and we gotta continue to do better, so. Okay, I appreciate it. I look forward to hearing that other bite of the apple that Senator Reedy could have, because I think, and what you shared, are the points that he needs to ensure he has those arrows in the quiver, if that's the right term. And I think, I'm looking forward to this passing, so. Any comments? Okay, thank you so much.
May I ask
Mike.
one question, Mr. President?
Absolutely.
The Police Accountability Board, we're looking at a July 1st deadline to appoint a board.
Good point.
Is it your sense we're not going to get any relief from the legislature about taking the municipalities out from under our wing as far as that goes?
That bill did not move forward.
Okay.
Yes. And there was some discussion a little bit yesterday that the Standards Commission, the guidance on forming, that there may be something coming soon, but maybe not. Very, very, wishy-washy.
Entertainers.
But we should move ahead with establishing the committee.
Yes.
Was the main, I guess, bite of that. We should move ahead with establishing the committee and have it done by July 1st. And if
Right.
something comes out later and says differently, then we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think the one concern that was expressed was the qualifications
Right.
may be different, and then you would have to go back and have a conversation with someone you've appointed to the commission because they didn't have the proper credentials, so. yeah.
But don't worry, they're hard at work making sure Carroll County can't do background checks on their employees like they do in Kent County and Prince George's
Exactly.
County. So
Ab-
sleep well
absolutely.
tonight.
Absolutely. That's the atmosphere down there. It's been, we always hear it every year, the most contentious session ever. And they're saying it again about this one. So I don't know when they get to the point where that's
They're all
stopped.
contentious.
Where they're less contentious.
But yeah, it just, but again, you can cut the tension down there with a knife. And it was interesting when President of the Senate came in last night, and everybody gets all rattled. And while he was speaking, there were comments being said on my side of the table under the breath. You know, it's just, it's very interesting, the atmosphere
Yeah.
down there. It really is. And it goes to some of this, because there are folks there that if you've got a D or an R beside your name, they're making decisions based primarily on that. And it can be the best thing for moving forward, but it's got that label.
Yeah.
So they're gonna dig in, and they don't care what you say.
I agree.
So-
No, I get you. One thing we didn't talk about were the cybersecurity bills.
Oh, yes.
And I spoke with Senator Hester about those moving forward, along with some businessmen and women, you know, that I work with, and the appreciation that cybersecurity's attention is getting down there. And it may not be, appreciated by all, you know, down there, but she's pushing it hard. And I know that, so that's something that's,
Yeah.
do you have any,
Well, Mark Ripper's had a big hand in that, and he leads that Mako
Right.
affiliate.
Right.
And so the one bill in particular is the one that that involves local government. So it sort of creates, they call it a fusion center.
Right.
Where it's not a top-down, it's more of a cooperative effort, where it's information sharing across the jurisdictions. When there is a cyber incident, it gets reported up and then distributed widely so people know what's happening and what steps are being taken. And so I think that bill in particular is really, really good.
yeah.
A lot of information sharing.
And again, having Carroll County in the front with Mark out down there, plus all the other things that he's responsible for.
Yeah, and there are two other bills that
Yeah.
that are likely, they've already passed the House, and
Right.
likely pass, and we can
Right.
discuss those more fully next week.
Yeah, I appreciate it, because that it's a world I live in, and I see them going forward.
A
So
lot of work on
that's
that.
good.
Wes.
Okay,
You're gonna be here today, right, Mike?
I will.
Because you have a chair in the office here.
I do.
Check.
And a chair for a visitor.
Two, actually. Which is a
Yeah,
step
that's
up
right,
from-
that's
There
right.
you go.
I sat in one the other day.
That's right.
okay, go away.
My pleasure.
With love.
Let's talk about Emergency Rental Assistance Program Award Round 2. Ms. Celine, Ms. Daniel, you want to come up?
Dennis was exhausted yesterday.
Too many crab cakes?
No, he had to stand the whole time in the Carroll County office.
Oh.
There's no chair.
No,
There's a
fair enough.
reason there's no extra chair there. They don't want you there.
I got the message, trust me. Never going back to that office. Go get a chair.
Okay, who wants to kick this off?
I will do that. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm here with Danielle Yates, our Bureau Chief for Housing and Community Development. Corey Hardinger, our Senior Grants Analyst, is also with us today. We're coming before you today to request approval to accept the additional Emergency Rental Assistance Program Award. We refer to this as ERAP. Pardon me. You're all very familiar with this program. We've come before you before to speak to how we are supporting residents in Carroll County who have fallen behind in their rent as a result of a relation to COVID and a loss of financial support or employment revenue. But this is a round 2 of the funding. And so with this additional funding, the U.S. Department of Treasury has announced that they will administer these funds through the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development. DHCD has made available an additional $2,931,482 for Carroll County to administer with this program for rental assistance, designating 10% of the award for housing stability services and administration of the project. There is a difference in the eligibility criteria for this project, which makes a big difference for us. As I just said, the last round, the COVID round, the ERAP round 1, the funding was available to individuals who could tie their rental arrearages back to the loss of income related to COVID. This new round of funding changes the eligibility criteria and makes it a little bit less restrictive in the fact that people just need to show that they had a loss or that they have rental arrears during the time of COVID. They don't have to tie it back to the financial component. And so this will have a huge impact on the evictions we are seeing coming through the courts now. We have seen, after the moratorium lifted earlier in March in the courts for failure to pay rent cases, we have seen an uptick significantly in those cases coming through our eviction court. So, Danielle, if you want to give the statistics of the people we've helped with ERAP round 1 so far, and then I'll talk a little bit more about this program.
So we're looking at the end of February where we've come up with our totals. So to date, we have assisted 314 households with a little over $2.389 million in assistance with rental and utility arrearages. Also within our court cases, as far as assistance with our housing stability coordinators, we have assisted a little bit over 40 active failure to pay rent cases where we've actually been able to deter that, assist with the arrearages, and keep those families housed as well. What we have seen, as Celine has indicated, as we are seeing more families that are applying for the current ERAP funding that cannot take that hardship and actually relate it back to a COVID cause. We have had a little bit over 80 denials since December that we haven't been able to assist with ERAP funding, but of course other funding sources that we have. So by accepting the ERAP 2 funding, this would allow us to help those families that we've had to deny.
And because of the broadening of those that would qualify for the ERAP 2 funding, we are also requesting to have the permission to hire an additional full-time grant contingent housing stability position, because we know we are going to see an uptick in those applications coming through and also those who will qualify to process through those funds.
This position would just be during the time where we're distributing these funds,
Correct.
and it's going to come out of the grant.
Correct.
Just to make that clear.
Are the, if I may, are the evictions hitting disproportionately our senior population, younger couples, single mothers, or is it evenly spread out? Is there any particular group that's getting hit the worst with evictions?
When we look historically at what we've assisted with ERAP, of course, it's going to be more the families that have working income that, of course, were impacted during the shutdown. What we're seeing now, though, I think is a bit of a more even spread.
Could you repeat that last part a little bit louder?
So we're seeing now currently more of an even spread as far as the individuals we're helping in age.
So it's going across all demographics?
Correct.
Thank you.
Right, and I think the reason for that is because with the first round of ERAP that was only for folks that could show a financial loss that had impact from COVID, those folks that are on a stabilized income like Social Security, which is a lot of our older adults, they couldn't show a loss of income because they have
I see
a
what you
consistent
mean.
income. So but we have seen because of other higher costs of things, there have been more coming through.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I make the motion, the Board of Commissioners approve the submission of the Emergency Rental Assistance Program Agreement and accept the award, as well as authorize the addition of 1 full-time grant contingent position.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing here none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now let's talk about the Youth and Family Engagement Diversion Program.
Thank you. So now I'm joined today by Gabby Zelaya. She's our local management board program manager, and also Corey again is with us as our senior grants analyst from the grants office. And here today we're seeking approval for submission of the FY23 Youth and Family Engagement Diversion Application and acceptance of the award. The Behavioral Health Diversion Initiative is currently being implemented throughout the state by the Maryland Department of Juvenile Services. The program focus is to link youth with mental health needs and their families to community services to keep youth in their homes and divert them from adjudication within the justice system. The total funding for this program is $80,000, And the Carroll County Local Management Board serves as the pass-through entity for this funding and provides programmatic monitoring and fiscal oversight of the program provider, which is the Carroll County Youth Services Bureau. I'm going to turn it over to Gabby because this program does some really great work, and I wanted her to give us some detail from this program.
Great,
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you. Thank you, Celine. So as Celine had said, the primary goal of this program is to link youth with mental health needs and their families to community services, to keep youth in their homes, and to divert them from further adjudication within DJS. So the Carroll County Youth Service Bureau runs our local youth and family engagement diversion program. They provide behavioral health case management services for youth and their families who are at risk of or are currently involved with Maryland's DJS. So CCYSB staff assess the youth and the family's needs, create action plans, and facilitate linkages to community services identified during the process. Participants also have access to the other additional behavioral health services at the Youth Service Bureau. The FY23 funding will continue operation of the program by covering staffing costs. And historically, this program is in high demand and has positive outcomes associated with participants' engagement in program goals and with reducing recidivism. So from fiscal year 2019 to fiscal year 2021, the program received an average of 38 referrals each year. 23 referrals have been received just in the first half of fiscal year 2022 alone. An average of 92% of the youth served by this program from FY19 to FY21 achieved goals outlined in their action plans, which included engaging in behavioral health and additional community support services. Currently, 93% of the youth served in the first half of fiscal year 22 are achieving goals within their plans. Lastly, a key measure of this program's success is related to recidivism, or the percentage of youth who did not incur new juvenile delinquent charges for 1 year after completing the program. From fiscal year 19 to 21, an average of 89.8% of participating youth did not incur new charges after 1 year. Rates reported for the first half of fiscal year 22 are similar in that 84% of those youth were 1 year out and did not incur new charges. If there were no other questions or comments?
Well, I must say I'm a big fan of this program. I was involved in something similar to this at the age of 16, and I think the return on investment we get for the dollars we spend is tremendous, because if not, the sheriff's department will be dealing with these individuals evolving into something worse as adults. So I commend everything you're doing on this and keep up the good work. With that, I move the Board of Commissioners approve the submission of the FY23 Youth and Family Engagement Diversion Application and accept the award.
Second. Sorry.
I have a motion and,
Was that a strong second?
that was a soprano second. Okay, any discussion? Very good briefing.
I just like to say this is extremely important. The mental health aspect is so often overlooked. There's usually something that drives people to do something that's not within norms, let's just say. And so addressing the mental health aspect is extremely important. And I congratulate you for doing that, and something we have to keep up. And I'll stop right there.
Commissioner Frazier, thanks for mentioning that, because I know in my experiences in life that these things can spiral into addiction issues, and that's a whole nother
Yes.
thing we have to deal with. So this has so many facets that benefit us in the long term.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing here none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies.
Now we're going to get into the Fiscal Recovery Fund update. And we, in our books, have our priority list and what has been allocated from those priorities. Okay,
Good morning, Commissioners.
good morning.
Yes, we are back before you today with updates to the FRF plan. When we met February 10th, you allocated all but 1.5 million of the FRF funding and asked staff to return with the results of the behavioral health RFP as well as the municipal water requests. So we'll cover those two topics today, as well as an additional request for the Ag Center Stormwater Management Parking Lot Project. I did include a project list for you with your briefing paper. There is one small update to the technology project at the historic courthouse that you approved last time. It's project number 7. So there was a slight increase in that project. And then the new requests for behavioral health and the Ag Center are projects 50 and 51 on your list. So I'm going to have Celine, I'll turn it over to Celine to talk about the results of the behavioral health RFP.
Okay.
And so, as Debbie noted, you had previously allocated as a board $1.5 million of the FRF funding to Citizen Services to develop the behavioral health RFP with a focus on the expansion of substance use and mental health services in Carroll County. With the help of the grants office, we initiated that bidding process and the RFP process, and it closed on March 1st. And fortunately, we have had 4 responsive bidders that have each provided proposals that will increase access to behavioral health services across the county. The project specifically identified expansion in the categories of crisis services, walk-in services, reentry services, and peer support and case management services. And each project will provide service through 2024 for 30 months. One of the other things that we identified in the RFP as part of the request was that the bidders be people that are agencies or providers that are very familiar with the needs specific to Carroll County. And I can say that all 4 of these bidders exhibit that request. So the total funding request to fully fund all 4 of the projects would be $3.4 million. In order to fully fund the proposals, we are requesting an additional $1.9 million of FRF funding to support these 4 projects.
Do we have the additional $1.9 million in funding?
We'll get to that now.
It looks like it's coming up short.
That will be one of your
Don't
decisions
skip
today.
We've got half the amount.
You have part of it. Yeah, it is important.
Go ahead.
And I think too that, we can't say a lot about the projects because we're still in open procurement, but there are ways if we
Right.
had less money that, we would either not award all 3 or cut, one of the programs. So there are options to award a lesser amount.
One of
if-
the, initiatives that I had the opportunity to start in this over 10 years ago at Fort Meade was the resiliency program. A lot of it had to deal with behavioral health. 8% of the workforce from Fort Meade comes from Carroll County. Ensuring that the program there is tethered to the programs here, I think is very important. Because what happens, especially with behavioral health, is, and I've shared, I'm an example of that, is you do not have the opportunity to decompress going from a very high op tempo, operations tempo, you know what that is, to getting in a vehicle and getting home to the family is a very short amount of time. And that's where a lot of this comes into play. So if we have the right tools in place and that we are tethered in a way to understanding the workforce. Now I'm throwing out Fort Meade, but it could also be the hospital during high op tempo of COVID or X. There's like these, large areas, these groupings, and the military I know personally is grouping, the hospital is a grouping. Will this be able to, with these 4 projects, be able to address that?
As far as connecting people and making sure that the resource, absolutely.
Okay.
Because all 4 of these bidders, I can say, do have relationships and connect with, all the available resources throughout the county because we are familiar with all 4 of these bidders.
And the projects expand outside of Westminster. They have tentacles or whatever we want to call it to the most northern part of the county because of those that are and then the most southern part. I'm
Well,
asking.
they
Yeah.
they serve individuals across the county.
Okay. Okay.
It's difficult for me to give a lot more detail without
Without
providing.
giving a lot more detail.
Right.
No, but I mean, as you understand what I'm trying to address.
I
and-
do.
Okay. Okay.
And what is recommended for award, once we know what the dollar amount is, will come back before the board for concurrence.
Sure.
So you'll see
Absolutely.
the final projects and what will be awarded.
Yeah, I mean, my point when it comes to behavioral health, it's understanding the problem. You know, it's a very complex situation, and recognizing the problem and what are the solutions. If these 4 projects are 4 potential solutions to a very dynamic problem set, then that's great. I just, you know, kind of where Commissioner Frazier, I don't want to spend money, you know, on something that isn't addressing the problem, especially if we don't have the money to spend, you know, so, okay.
Okay, so, the next request is, an expansion or additional funding for the Ag Center parking lot and stormwater management project. I've just laid out the budget for you here. The total budget for the entire project is $840,000. Last month, you allocated $240,000 of the FRF funding to the stormwater portion of the project. There is in the county budget $200,000 for this project, leaving a gap of $400,000. So after discussing that with the Ag Center, staff is asking the FRF to cover the remaining cost of $400,000. And I believe
Jason's here.
somebody from DPW is
Yeah,
here to
and-
answer any questions that you might have.
The intent here is to asphalt the parking lot, which would then minimize the impact on the stormwater management.
Correct.
So you got to have the ability to do both. There was a wish list that we wouldn't have to fund that parking lot, you know, pavement, but the reality is we do, because it has to get done in order for this.
And
So.
half the parking lot's in the Farm Museum pond, so.
Yeah.
It's probably like, you know, that used to be 10 feet deep, and now it's like, what, 8 inches or something, Jason? I don't know.
The fish taste
My-
like asphalt.
My only issue with this one, or challenge, I think this is, we gotta do it. I mean, there's no,
Right.
when we were out there the other night, I don't know which way you guys went in, a lot of folks
I
went
went
in
in
on
the
the
back.
top, but I went in the bottom,
Yeah.
and it's
It's
all
washed
washed out
Right.
there
Right.
as we speak.
Right.
Yeah, it is.
But my only challenge is the follow-up to this, because Blacktop's only gonna last so long with the amount of activity that's at the Ag Center, with equipment and what have you. We're gonna find ourselves having to put into our budget recurring cost for maintenance. So
Yeah.
I just wanna make you aware,
Yeah.
while we're fixing the problem now,
Yeah.
we're creating an additional challenge, because there's going to be, and the way that there's springs underneath that thing, right? I mean, you might as well come on up here. Where's Doug with his purple shirt? Why didn't you both, you know? Anyway.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any particular issues. We did do some core sampling of the
Did you?
parking lot in
Okay.
preparation for this project to ensure we got a
Right.
good base of product on there to accommodate the tractor and trailers, the tractors, and the heavy
Right.
traffic. So typically, you know, parking lots are going to last 20 to 30 years. The parking lot section is on Ag Center property. So I know there's a kind of a joint effort here between the county and the Ag Center.
Okay.
So those decisions regarding budgeting and things like that will have to be worked out between the board and the Ag Center,
Okay.
because it is part of their parcel.
And the thickness of this is
Probably a foot deep.
is much thicker than other areas, isn't it, because of the type of equipment? I thought it was,
Well, due to the core samplings that we took,
Right.
and that base setting, there are some thicker areas within
Right.
that blacktop, yes.
Yeah.
But part of the spec is understanding that we are going to have some heavy truck traffic
Right,
on there.
right.
And even though it is periodic,
That's right.
you
Yeah,
got
that's where I
people
was-
turning
right.
radiuses and
Yeah,
things like that.
that's where I
that
was
could cut
going,
into
because in a previous life with fire services, we always had to put thicker blacktop in
Right.
front of on our aprons,
Right.
because you bust them up, right, Jim? Yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure, and if you stay off certain areas with your John Deere, we'd be fine probably, but
Yeah, but some of these pieces of equipment are not light any longer.
I know.
We're looking at 15, 20 ton piece of equipment. So-
Yeah, I only bring it up because it's gonna be a challenge in the
Right.
future, and we've gotta
It
make
is.
sure that we have plans
And-
in place when the first pothole
Yeah.
occurs
Yep,
in the not-too-distant future.
And the
But
county's
anyway.
using this facility more and more all the time.
Right.
And that's, you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
one of the other things, that's, I think we're considering it.
right.
Seem to be, they helped us through the COVID, they helped us on everything here. We just seem to be using that facility more, and, well, it's the largest facility we have
Yeah.
indoors
Right.
for anything.
Yeah.
So,
Okay,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. And then the last thing we're gonna look at today
Wait,
are
one
the.
more question about that
Oh,
one.
so sorry.
When would that start, if the money's approved for it? Would that,
Immediately
August,
this
after
spring?
the, I'm sorry.
after the fair, yeah.
We still have some design work to do. They are planning on putting that out to bid and being by August for the project. So we expect it to start sometime September, October-ish, in that timeframe.
Yeah.
Actually, I think they're starting to put the lights in ahead of time on the piers. They questioned that possibly.
So they have the lights already.
They have those, and
They're
they
in
paid for it.
storage. They wanted to get this all done before the fair. That ain't happening. So they have the lights in storage. They can get through the fair, they can put this out to bid, the bid will come back, and then like in August, September timeframe is what they were looking at,
Good.
so.
I think the sooner the better.
And everything keeps getting more expensive.
And everything gets
Every minute
more
we wait.
expensive, right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right. So the last thing we're gonna look at today are the requests that we received from the municipalities for water projects. In February, you allocated $3 million for water projects. We received 5 requests totaling $8.5 million. They came from Hampstead, Manchester, Union Bridge, Westminster, and New Windsor. And just as a reminder, the board has 2 of your previously approved FRF projects are utility projects. We have Hampstead Wastewater Treatment Project and the Freedom Water Treatment Plant Project in the Freedom District. So we reviewed these internally. You can see the staff that was on that review team to see if it met your criteria for our drinking water project and if it met the FRF criteria. And the FRF kind of hangs its hat on EPA guidance and projects that would be eligible under the Drinking Water State Revolving Loan Fund, which EPA funds projects that have a contamination problem or a regulatory issue. They don't do maintenance. This is how they tied water into a COVID relief program, is that it's addressing a public health issue. So these are the projects that were requested, and we've grouped them into 3 categories. The first 3, from New Windsor, Manchester, and Union Bridge, both meet your criteria for drinking water projects and the FRF criteria. The second grouping are those projects that for wastewater didn't meet your criteria for drinking water, and the last group of projects didn't meet the FRF criteria. They weren't addressing a public health issue, or they were maintenance, or they have to also, it's federal funding, so you have to meet procurement guidelines. So those projects we didn't feel were eligible under the criteria that we issued this request under. So you have the projects and the funding. The staff recommended the staff recommendation is for 2.1 million. You do have 3 million though allocated as a part of this project.
So the last group of projects, even if we wanted to fund them, we are prohibited from funding them from basically the federal government says, no, you can't fund this group. Gotcha, okay.
Yes and no. So this is my world. So when we came back before you, or when we were before you in February, you did elect the 10 million in lost revenue. That 10 million, so it didn't add to the 32 million, but of your 32 million, it gave you flexibility. I was thinking the flexibility might be on the back end of the grant as it wound down, then we would have flexibility with that money. You can use that 10 million, up to 10 million, for general government services. So technically, we could fund anything on this list. But I sorted it by what criteria you gave us and what criteria we gave the towns. But under lost revenue, we could fund these projects. They don't meet FRF criteria, but we have that flexibility in that 10 million to use that money for anything that we would spend general government funding on.
But shouldn't we focus this money on the intent of what is being what is being provided for, and that is the 4 categories of FRF? I understand we could use it for other things. We're given that flexibility, and maybe other jurisdictions are doing that, but we're given a certain amount of money, and I think we owe it, to ourselves to do the right thing, and to the community. These are the 4 categories.
And that's the direction that I took with it. I'm not looking to use that the 10 million is just there because we needed to declare that now, and then at the end, we could have some flexibility in how we used it, if we needed to.
And remember, it's not an additional 10 million that's sitting aside.
Right.
You've already
Right.
allocated all of your 32 million
Right.
with the exception of 1.5 million.
Right.
Okay.
And that was the other,
On these top 3, which meet all the criteria,
yes.
we said, if I remember correctly, 50% match is what we're looking to do.
I'm sorry, I didn't mention that. All of the municipalities did provide those matching dollars, so this is half of the project.
Okay.
So the funding request, because then I'm confused at the first one, the water main improvements for New Windsor, it's $1.1 million.
Whoops. I'm sorry. So I also included in your table what they received what the municipality received in FRF funding for your reference. So the first column is what the municipality received. So New Windsor received 1.1 million in
We're
FRF.
not 100% sure.
Sorry, it's an estimate.
Yes, this is the original estimate from Senator Cardin's office. We know it's slightly different in each case. I believe Westminster told us when we met with them that they received 18 million in change. So, but
Right.
but
Right,
we don't
okay.
have
All
access
right,
to that
but my,
information,
all
so
right,
this is just the
right, but my
original.
question is,
Yeah.
let's go back to New Windsor water main
Yeah.
improvements. How much does the total project cost?
Well, this total project, I believe, was 4 million. They have 2 million. They're asking us for 1 million, and they still
Okay.
need to. So they are more than meeting their
Okay, that's what I
requirement
was-
for a
right,
dollar
okay.
for dollar match.
Yeah.
Yeah. In all cases, every municipality matched our dollars with at least
Okay,
a
that's
dollar
what I
for
want to
dollar.
know. All right, thank
Yeah.
you.
When we had our dinner with Westminster, we asked them, and I thought from that, we're asking all the municipalities who are receiving money, what is their priority list? Because we are showing this is our priorities, and this is open. Everybody knows what our priorities are. Everybody understands, if they look, how we are recommending the allocation and executing of our dollars. I don't want to provide any dollars to a municipality if they're not telling me this is their priority list, because I don't know where this stands. Is this their highest priority that we want to address and serve them? I want to do what's best for municipalities, but for them just to say, give me $1 million, that's not right. I mean, we should have 8 spreadsheets of the or whoever got money, and
But
until we
that's-
get that.
Isn't that what you did? Isn't that what your focus group did, or not?
Did you ever
have-
get them?
Yeah,
I
did you have,
apologize.
no, did you have that, what you're asking for in your hands when you made?
No.
Then
We did
Okay.
not ask
Then I
them,
would stop.
but to be fair, we did not ask, I did
Right,
not.
we did not.
We didn't ask, we just said,
Wow.
we want you to match it. And in some cases, it looks like they were local dollars. In one has already been awarded, and it was awarded with local dollars, and they want us to come in behind and put some federal dollars to it. So, no, we didn't ask that, to
I
be
mean,
fair to the municipalities.
so-
I didn't ask them
Okay.
for it.
So I think we should ask the municipalities, if Westminster has $18 million that has been given to FRF, I'd like to know how that $18 million is prioritized and where they believe it should be allocated and executed, along with all the other jurisdictions.
So that's fine, we can.
Okay.
We have not, Westminster's answer, that evening, I think Councilman Pecoraro said that they were doing that as part of their budget process. They were creating their list.
Okay.
So they
That's
don't
right.
have that at this time.
Right.
So we can ask, we can put this
Yeah.
on hold, so to
Yep.
speak,
Yeah.
and come back and revisit it once we have that information from
Yeah.
the
Yeah, I don't think this should be a
towns.
first time, I apologize. I just don't believe this should be a, first heard, first served. This should be, let's gather all the information from all the jurisdictions.
Sure.
On what the priorities are in using FRF, and then we can legitimately make a decision for our county. I mean, this is great, but, I just don't know
We
where
don't
to
know the
even
real
start.
need.
Right, I don't understand what the real needs are, so,
Okay.
And now that we're to the point where there's more need than money.
yeah,
we
always will be.
Well, I know,
What a
but
shock.
up until this point, I don't know that we realized that, because we were able to make some good decisions
Yeah.
based on need. But now that we're getting into the crunch time, the ask is more than what we have.
Well, from our staff, the ask was like 56 million, and
Well,
we got down to
I know,
32,
yeah,
so.
right. I know
yeah,
initially, but
Yeah,
during the process, we've been able to
Yeah.
fulfill a good bit of that. So
mhm,
I think now we really need to get, as we get to the bottom of the pail, pun intended, we need to get a little bit more detail. Is kind of where I am with it. I don't know.
is it pail of water?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I didn't get that quite, okay.
Well, you're still stuck on.
I'm still stuck on the sediment out in the,
Well, I know.
yeah.
And what you
That's
recalled
in it.
earlier this morning. So there's
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I know.
He's parking in the pond.
Well, I like seeing these three municipalities on this list at the top, because if I'm not mistaken, they are the three smallest, and two of them are in my district. And they're crying for love and some help. They kind of feel like stepchildren amongst all the municipalities. So we'll see how this all pans out, but they do truly need some help.
Now, could I ask, did you want that information just from those that we've recommended that are following the FRF, or, I mean, for this decision-making purpose, or will we reorder this list depending on, and just come back and revisit the whole, topic?
I'd like to revisit the whole topic. I'd like to, I mean, it's not rocket science, and it's, they have a priority list. They have a finite amount of dollars that has been provided to them, and they should have the ability, which I know they do through their leadership and mayors and council, to determine their priorities. We have those in front of us, and if they meet that criteria where the water is on the highest priority, I mean, then we should address it. But,
Well, but you're not suggesting that we go through all these again, though. You just
No.
want to see what the priorities are.
yeah,
Because it's already been identified that there's 3 projects that did not meet our criteria.
Right.
Right.
And 7 that didn't meet FRF.
right.
But it would still be nice to know.
Well, because
guess.
the other point is that $10 million that's, can be used for general government,
Yeah, right.
can be used, and I'm like, I
Right,
don't
okay.
like that. I'd like to stay within the,
Yeah, okay.
again, within the lines, the 4 criteria. But if we know that a jurisdiction has a very high priority that doesn't fit, that may be something where we can have that conversation.
Yeah.
Again, it's a great opportunity for the county to work with the municipalities together on knowing what the priorities are for the county dollars, FRF, and the 8 jurisdictions. So, okay. At least that's my thoughts on it. I mean,
Yeah, we'll prioritize all these, just, we need to see where they fall.
yeah, and they should be able to do that. I mean, it's in their best interest.
In the meantime,
Well, in the meantime, do we have to make a decision on how we want to spend some of this money?
So,
Okay.
If you'd like to.
yes, you could. So this is a summary of where we're at. So again, that 3 million is part of your plan. It's been previously allocated. With the new request for the additional 1.9 for the behavioral health RFP and the additional 400,000 for the parking lot. That brings the total allocated in new request to 33.5 million. So you are 800, the plan is 800,000 overspent at this point.
If you
If we, yeah, well,
funded both these projects.
correct.
All right, then.
And,
How
and
we-
in the meantime,
Yeah.
Celine's still in the room, so.
You can have a seat if you want. You may be here for a few minutes.
I know, I'm seeing how this all comes down to us, as it seems to typically do. But I think one of the things that Corey reminded me that we left out was that the final rule for the FRF dollar, the dollars were permitted behavioral health services to be made available for originally just those that were disproportionately impacted by COVID. So your low-income population, people of color, those populations. However, once the final rule came out, that was no longer the case. Now the FRF funding can be utilized and available to everyone. So especially with the behavioral health side of things, that does make a little bit of a difference, that these funds can be used to serve all Carroll County residents.
So the 1.9 is in addition to the 1.5,
Correct.
which is the original.
Correct.
Okay, where's the 1.9 coming from?
Well, you could either reduce one of these requests to bring it into balance. You could reduce it by 800,000 and give 1.1. My other thought on when I looked at what we recommended for the municipal request, if only 3 are eligible, that's 2.1 million. You've allocated 3 million. If you unallocated and only funded those 3 that are eligible under your criteria in the FRF and brought that back to the bottom line, that could fund fully both the behavioral health RFP and the stormwater project.
Just seems like
Parking
you
lot.
work magic.
Sometimes I wonder. I was
It
like,
just
wow, that kind of
evens
worked out,
I'm
didn't
like,
it?
How'd you do that?
I didn't do it. I really, truly. I color within the lines, you know that.
That was
And
pretty impressive, though.
I thought it worked out pretty nicely, yeah, but that is completely up your decision, how you'd like to handle that. But that is where we are. And we do want to award the RFP. We want people to be able to start July 1. And we have, that time frame that we have to make an award. So we want to know how much is available, so that we can move forward and award those projects with whatever funding is available.
I like that.
So taking the 3 million down to 2.1 million with the 3 projects that meet the criteria, not allocating it, but I mean, being prepared to allocate it once we get the prioritization. But with that said, allocating the entire 1.9 is what you're saying.
We would have money then to do that
We would have money to do that.
and have a little bit left over.
So I'm looking down through
Yeah.
the request versus allocations, just to make sure that, there's not something that leaps
Yeah.
off the page.
Is everything still valid?
Yeah, because they're really, everything that's not allocated
Right.
is still in the running really here.
That is true too. And, broadband is the big unknown. If we get 30 million from the state,
Yep.
if all 3 of those, that would probably be a stretch. Even if we get 10 million from the state in one of those large ISP projects that were put in, broadband picture could change dramatically.
Absolutely.
We won't know that right away, but you may have flexibility in 6 months or 9 months because we've gotten our grants from the state and we've put out an RFP. And maybe we don't need 15 million. I don't know. Costs are going up. I don't know that that'll happen, but there
Is
may
it
be.
15 million or 18 million?
You have 15 million just for broadband
Okay,
connections,
yeah.
and then there's additional money to make connections to the public safety facilities that
right.
were identified, and then a couple of county buildings.
And
So
that all added up to, I think, to around 18. That's right.
Yep.
I didn't bring a project list with me.
Okay.
You,
17.
sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's 17, 18
0.8.
million.
0.8, okay.
20.
Um,
Wow.
17.8.
I think I said that. Please.
I mean, the good news is, we do have this money provided to us to meet some of these significant needs. And I mean, again, very strong about the behavioral health requirements.
Each of those 4 areas that you listed, Celine, one sort of leads to the other, right?
There's an interconnection between.
That's where I was
There is.
going. So
Yeah.
if you miss the one step, you sort of kind of put a challenge to your whole picture when you're looking at the 4.
Well, all 4 of those were criteria that they could do projects around. Not each one of them has a project that covers each one of those 4 areas.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm
I
just
don't
kidding.
think- No, but I don't think it's answering,
Well, I mean, I'm not suggesting that we pull one out in order to save a few $100,000 here.
So
I just want to make sure one happens that creates the next one to happen, that helps the next one to
Yeah.
happen, that
They're all
helps.
interconnected.
Right. That's where I was going, I guess,
Okay.
in layman's terms.
My suggestion, why don't we send a letter to all the municipalities about the water projects that are didn't meet the criteria for whatever reason, and explain to them what didn't meet it and why we're not funding them, especially, I mean, that just makes sense. And then that frees up the .9 that we need for the behavioral health projects, and we're fine. We don't have to look at anything else.
Well, right. That's the today issue. The further
Yeah.
is getting their criteria. Yeah, that's, I understand. And,
That's all I have to do today.
right, well,
And we don't have to fund the water projects right now until you get the criteria that you're asking for from those, 3 different municipalities that the water projects met both our criteria and the FRF criteria.
well,
So-
no, I think we can. I think we can allocate that money to them. They came back to us and said, here are the projects, and and they do meet the
Well,
criteria.
yeah, I thought you said you wanted to know their,
I do.
okay, right, once you find their priorities, you allocate the money, I don't have a problem with that, but you want to find out their priorities first,
Yeah.
correct?
I don't think one has to, I don't think that, I want to find out their priorities,
Okay,
but I don't think that's as necessary.
So,
that's not what you were saying.
Can I just,
I know,
can I
but-
just throw another little thought in here about, if I were a municipality and I had wait, I'm sorry.
Only if it helps.
Only if it helps. I don't know, you can tell me later whether it was helpful or not. If I were a municipality, and I have talked to a couple of them, because we worked really closely with the municipalities on the CRF. This funding didn't come through us, but I'm certainly there as a resource. If I were a municipality, I would and I had less than 10 million given to me through the FRF, I would take it as lost revenue. And I would use it then as general government services for especially for like a New Windsor. They got 800,000, I think, is their allocation. Instead of, it's much less complicated. The reporting's less complicated. I mean, it's still federal money. You still have to follow a lot of guidelines, but it will give them a lot of flexibility. So if I were a small town with even less staff than we have to manage this kind of stuff, I would do the simpler thing. And so what you might find when you ask them, they might not have a priority list because they're going to just use it as they need it through the period of performance. Now Westminster will, because they're
Yeah.
over the 10 million mark, but just a thought. I don't know what you will get from them.
Maybe.
which leads me to, I'm trying to be as correct here as I can. Based on the size of our 8 municipalities, they received money accordingly.
Right.
So you almost have to look at, okay, what percentage did they get based on how much they spend in order to compare who gets what? You know where I'm going here? Because obviously the Westminsters of the world are gonna get a lot more money and have the ability to look at the resources
Yeah.
and have staff look at where to put it. I mean, when you get to the New Windsors and
Union Bridge.
Union Bridges of the world, they don't, I mean, what do
It's
they
a
have, a
struggle.
town clerk?
Mm.
I mean, I'm trying to be respectful here, so are they getting, and when you looked at it focused, with your really focused group, did that come into play too? Because
No, it was
I-
clearly.
I'm trying to be fair with
Right.
this, and I think that's a legitimate detail for the smaller municipalities.
They're at a disadvantage.
Yeah, so,
See,
They have fewer
I think, I wanna respect all the municipalities. They have councils, they have mayors, and I
I know,
wanna.
but they don't have staff.
No,
and
no, I
that's the-
understand, but, you know, when they convene their council, say, listen, we have $800,000, how do we want, with their town manager there, to prioritize our requirements? I mean, and it's not more than just saying, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, or it may just be 1, 2, you know, because of these tow projects. But I'm doing it in a sense of not just, you know, giving them the fish, but, you know, having them actually fish and using their leadership, so we're not just giving them money. Maybe they want just the money, but I think it goes a much longer way if we get the partnership and we use their council and their mayors together. I'm open to giving that 2 point whatever million, you know, that's fine, but I still would like to follow
Right,
through
it's
with
fine.
the councils.
Well, then do we need a motion to reduce our $3 million to 2.1 for water allocation projects?
I think you just need I mean, we could, that's fine.
I'll make a motion to reduce our water allocation from the where is it, FR?
Yeah, FRF.
FRF money to $2.1 million. That would cover the 3 projects
Can you go to
potentially
the
that
next
are
slide?
eligible to both.
Yeah.
This
The-
one?
No, I think it's the next one. Whatever, yeah, this one.
So the top 3 would be covered right here, the ones that meet the
Go back
The
one.
ones that
Go
that
back one.
meet
Go back one.
our
Yeah.
criteria
Oh.
and
There you
the
go.
FRF funding criteria would be covered, yes.
And then the remaining 1, 2, 3, 10 would be asked to prioritize for additional.
No,
No,
they're not,
no.
they can't be covered.
They're
And
not
we
'cause they don't
Send
meet it,
them a
okay.
letter telling them that, thank you for your request, however, they can't be covered because of these particular reasons. That way they know what's going on. I don't want to just leave them hanging out in the cold.
Okay.
I will second the motion.
And we don't have to award those top 3 yet until you get your priority list, and I'm fine with that. But at least we know how much money we're going to set aside for that.
Okay.
Okay, there's I know you got a motion second. It is, that bottom column, that did not meet FRF criteria.
Correct.
Do they know that? Because if we're saying they didn't, do they know that they didn't?
I don't know that they're putting the FRF dollars in there. That was not, they could be using local dollars. And one of these was using local dollars because they had already awarded the contract. But it's 1,000 pages of guidance. It's, you know,
Yeah.
it's a lot. But maintenance, if it's not addressing a public health issue, that's first and foremost what these projects need to do. So some kind of line contamination, it's not eligible under, and so when I read it, and I tend to be very conservative, and then we had, of course, utilities sitting in on the review because they know a lot more about water and wastewater than I'll ever know, and DPW director as well as land and resource management director, so that we all looked at this with the criteria and didn't think that they were eligible.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll cite the guidance
Yeah.
where
Right.
and we sent the links, you know, it's 1,000 pages, so we sent a link in the request for proposal so that they could go on and review it. But it's a lot of information.
Yeah, I mean, there's a fine line between water line repairs and storage tank cleaning. Because in my mind, they both sort of are important because drinking water is drinking water and the lines need to be repaired and the drinking water comes out of the storage tank that goes into the lines.
Or are you talking about the last two?
Yeah,
Union
I mean,
Bridge ones?
I'm just saying that there's those last two there seem to be
Right.
kind of legit to me.
Yeah, how do they
And I
split
don't know
the
what the
hairs?
difference is between a water line repair that made it up at the top and a storage tank repair or pipe replacement at the bottom.
So, yeah, and before you
You're gonna
jump
get your
in
answer.
real quick, because I was looking at the same thing, there are a lot of Union Bridge smaller ticket items that if somehow we can package these, into one, I don't know if that's doable or not, but
Yeah.
Andy, if you
But
can.
then I don't want to
yeah.
get into
I know.
the debate that, well, we
We're
threw,
handing money
we
to
threw
Union
Union
Bridge.
Bridge in there,
Right,
but
I know.
wait a minute, Manchester needs their
Yeah,
water
hand-
meters
yeah.
replaced.
Go ahead,
So,
Andy.
Well, generally speaking, Commissioners, the top three items were absolute water main rehab or replacement type projects. They clearly met the criteria of the FRF funding, clearly met the criteria. The bottom group, they were very focused on maintenance activities. The water storage tanks, the cleaning and inspection process, the very bottom one listed, is absolutely it's not a rehab type effort. It's an inspection venue. So in the group's opinion, and it was not just one or two people, it was across the board.
you're juggling here, Andy.
Wow.
You're juggling, I mean, seriously.
Maintenance projects are not eligible under EPA guidance. It's just, that's part of, so the FRF, I mean, Treasury never ever had a grant before they had all this COVID money. So they have, used other federal guidelines in order to distribute the money. And EPA, you have to be addressing a contamination issue, a public health issue, in order to use EPA funding and therefore the FRF funding.
Okay, I get that. But I would argue as a mayor of Union Bridge that is relevant with my storage tank.
Mm-hmm.
You see where I'm going here? I get what I'm not arguing with you, Andy, because you absolutely know it better than anybody. But it just seems like there's a fine line here, and I want to make sure before we send this letter out to the municipalities that it's clear as to why they didn't meet these things. And I'll be perfectly honest, when someone comes in with a request that equals $9,000 and we're saying no, it seems like we could put that in there and let it be part of the package.
Right, I know.
But yet, that's where I was trying to, I mean, if water's contaminated, it could be contaminated in the storage tank if it's not cleaned.
Understood.
I'm not trying to complicate this, I want to be fair.
But you're succeeding.
Well, I am
Yeah,
complicated.
which part, complicating? No. No, I mean, I agree. I mean, Union Bridge has
Thank you.
some very specific areas that they want addressed, and they're not meeting the criteria, but they're lower ticket items. I don't want to play favorite one over the other, but I'm kind of in the same dilemma that it's hard for me to
Okay.
split this.
I understand what you're saying, but if you're gonna open them up, and what you're gonna be opening them up to would be our $10 million that we set aside, then you have to
And
open all
I-
those
I
projects
know.
up to the exact
I
same.
know,
Yes.
and I don't want to go there.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay, that it's
Not
either,
now.
and I understand that there are only a few thousand on those.
Yeah.
And it's not a lot of money, but if you're gonna open
Right.
them up, they open them all up. To be
Yep.
fair.
I agree.
It's my take on that.
And to address the $10 million, we need to understand the priorities of the jurisdictions
And then
before we even touch that.
And I guess the other way to
So-
look at it is if we give them the ability to repair their water lines, maybe they'll have money that they could
Mhm.
put
Yeah.
towards the storage repair and
Yeah.
that they didn't have before because they got what we're giving them for that.
That's a good point. At last.
So, okay, so the motion that was on the table and seconded was reducing the $3 million to the
2.1.
2.107500? Isn't that what you said?
Sounds exactly like what I said.
Okay, and I imagine you seconded that, correct?
Yes.
That'll allow the three items that are meeting both FRF and our criteria.
Right.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing here none, all in favor of that action? Aye. Okay, now, the second is to allocate funds, the 2.3 million for behavioral health, RFP, along with the ag.
Can I suggest you use the motion?
Yeah, I have it right
in the
here.
book?
I'm just about to say it.
Oh, is there a motion?
I was
Because I'm
waiting for
not-
him to pause.
I need clarity
paused.
on, I think the
Oh.
motion was simply, the motion you just passed was simply to reduce the 3 million to the 2.4.
Yes. Right.
It was not allocating or awarding the
No,
projects.
Oh.
at this
no,
point.
it was not. And we're not doing
Oh, I
that.
apologize.
No.
Allocate.
Okay.
Now we need
Oh.
to.
And then I would make the motion that we direct staff to move forward with the following projects: behavioral health, RFP, ag center
Oh.
parking lot.
I see what you're saying. Okay, sorry.
And we're holding the other one until we get the priorities from the
Okay.
municipalities.
Does that make sense?
That last sentence was not in the motion though, but.
Okay. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Aye.
Aye, but why are we holding those?
Because he wants to find out what the priorities are before we put them out.
Okay. Is that gonna change? Why can't they
Don't
move
know.
forward? I don't know. Okay. Just asking,
Okay.
only because I can complicate it.
Just
So
trying-
now, I
just trying to work within
want
the
clarity on
board here.
the priorities. Do you want to hear from all 8 towns
Yes.
of their priorities? That's what I thought.
Yes.
Okay, not just the 3 that might have water
Correct.
projects.
All 8.
And,
All jurisdictions that have received FRF dollars.
gotcha.
And we should be very transparent about this.
And another point of clarity, the letter that we're going to send to the towns, should we wait until we have those priority lists? Because we haven't awarded the towns the municipal
Yeah.
water at this point, so potentially, all of the projects are still in play?
Yeah, and it's in their best interest to,
I don't know, I'm asking.
Put this in
That's why I'm
place.
asking.
I think that makes sense.
I think it's, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
Okay.
I think it's in their best interest to get their priority letters to us because we have funds that we are considering on whether to allocate or not allocate.
You mean the other $10 million is what you're talking
Well,
about?
the 2.1.
Well, the 2.175 or whatever. it
Along
is.
with the other 10 million. If
Okay.
something
If
pops
something
up that we're
really-
like.
All right, so if
Wow.
we're looking at all that, then we can wait.
Yeah.
Because and maybe by then we'll know a little bit more about broadband. I mean,
Broadband,
we
that's right.
may delay it until
Yeah.
you know more, and if you then have some other funds
Yeah.
that are
I
available.
mean, there are FRF funds in play for the county that could be provided to the jurisdictions. They need to make the case on why that should happen, and the only way they can do that is by providing a priority letter, so it's in their best interest. So,
Okay.
okay,
I think so.
yeah.
I'll direct them to you when they ask me more.
No, I
Didn't
think
do-
it's,
I don't think I
makes
did it
sense.
right again.
Well, New Windsor
That's
needed
easy.
some good news lately, and this is very good news, and I want to thank my colleagues for that.
Well, it's not, it's done yet.
No.
No, it's not.
Nothing was allocated.
It's still in play.
Yeah.
But they're on the list, so to speak.
Yeah, but
They're at the top.
no money was given to the
But
the
this
municipalities.
gives them hope. What I'm getting
Yes.
at, this is just something they need.
They can look forward to, hopefully.
Okay,
Let's move on, jeez.
what
Thank
are
you,
we talking about
Commissioners.
now?
Oh,
I appreciate it, and I'm sure all of your constituents do as well, so thank you very much.
Absolutely, thank
Thank you.
you. Great job as always. Youth and family, FRF, okay. Loan request from Hampstead Volunteer Fire and Hose Company, number 1, an adoption of resolution declaring intent to reimburse expenditures with debt proceeds.
You sure you want to come in here?
For $1.5 million, I'll come in.
Understood.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We'll try to make this a little easier.
That's almost assured, but go ahead.
I'm sure. With me today is Director Michael Robinson from Fire and EMS and Mr. Dwyer from the Hampstead Fire Company. We have received a second request from Hampstead Fire Company for an additional $1.5 million for the for a low interest loan. That's the program that the county offers to fire companies. Due to the supply chain issues and significant increase in cost of building materials, as we all know, they've requested an additional $1.5 million. This would be in addition to the $5 million that you approved back last February 18th of 21 to be exact. If we proceed, we will work with Hampstead Fire Company in the construction of their building. It would be a 20-year loan, and we would issue debt, and then they would receive the interest rate that we get from that debt as a pass-through. So we would pass on the debt to them. They would then repay us over the 20 years in a loan. Currently, they have one outstanding equipment loan with us, and the balance on that is $622,172.99. And they are current on their payments. We've no problem, never had any issues with them repaying on the loans. So we are asking for the board's approval of the loan request, and approval will allow the fire company to continue with the construction of the new building. In addition, I am requesting the board to adopt a resolution declaring the county's official intent to reimburse expenditures with debt proceeds. This resolution enables the fire company and the county to expend funds with the intention to reimburse with future proceeds in the amount of $1.5 million, subject to the requirements of tax-exempt debt issuance. And
So this is like a 25% increase, if I'm correct in that, my quick math. And it's all because of basically COVID, supply chain, getting materials and that kind of stuff.
I met with the contractors this morning, our construction. I signed the final contract this morning. And the primary culprit is steel, copper, and PVC related products.
Yeah.
That and the fact that the materials, the cost of the manpower as well, and all the shipping, and the trucks, the fuel associated with that. So we're locking them in at a price that we can live with, and they're assuring us they're going to stay within that price.
Yeah.
They're locking the contracts as well.
Hopefully they lock down their steel costs, because two of those elements I deal with, and I'm revising prices constantly on that, month to month.
We're using steel that we are actually having them purchase now, the building, the second building, and we'll store it until such time. So that was one of the cost mitigation strategies we implemented back in January when we watched the trajectory of the costs. And I said, don't delay, go spend the money now. I'd rather spend the money now and lock it in. It's not going to get cheaper.
Utility companies are doing precisely that. I'm seeing a lot more bulk items purchased in the metal industry, and they'd rather hold it in inventory at today's prices. So what they're doing is a wise move.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to lock in. I want to reduce the number of variables that can impact our cost.
Sure. If you're not aware, would you just give us a brief explanation of what you are doing with the back and how you
Sure.
move
There's
through the
two.
project?
There's two aspects to this. The building that we're in right now was built in 1974. It replaced the building that we built in 1901. It was built as a multi-use facility for both fundraising and for emergency services. It was never designed to operate as a 24-hour day, 7 days facility with crews at the station. We're going to two buildings. The first building that we're building is going to be in the back of the property. It will be the interim fire station for 1 year. We expect that to have, the building will be delivered on April 14th. We should have it constructed and operational by the end of, probably the end of November, early December. We will then, it'll be 5 bays. We will back all of our equipment. We'll put our paid crews in there, and we'll be operate out of that facility for emergency operations for at least a year. At that point in time, we will deconstruct the building that's on Main Street, and we will put the new building in there. That building will be emergency operations only. We are separating any type of fundraising from emergency operations. As you know, the complexity of the fire and emergency services is such that what we have to deal with in terms of decontamination, what we have to do with the size of the equipment that we have, we are completely separating emergency services and access to that building from the public, except when we have open houses. We're designating the second building, that's the interim operations building, will be only for the, will be fundraising. So at the time the new building, the new operations center is ready to go, we expect that to be at the end of December of '23. I'm being an optimist here. We will then move all the equipment, emergency operations into the new building. The building in the back will go through a minor changes to remove the bay doors. We'll enclose those, have windows, and we will outfit that as an event center to be used by the community for weddings, fundraising events, community meetings, business meetings, and such. So we'll be operating both buildings. The building in the back will only be used to raise funds to help offset the cost of the emergency operations center. Does that answer your question, Dick?
No, you can pay for it, right?
Yeah, we can pay for it. Yeah, this was interesting. I had to sit down and build a financial model for the next 5-7 years to go through with the board to reflect our investments versus our cash management versus our loans and so forth. And we're definitely liquid, and I manage under a cash management perspective so that we don't touch our investments. We should be able to manage on a cash payment basis to pay for our loans.
Jenny, are we seeing more loans, applications coming in?
From fire companies in general. I've only been notified or contacted by one other one, and they have not turned an application in, so currently we only have this application at this time.
Okay.
Well, it's a good deal, and historically, our fire companies have rarely had an issue. I mean, I don't know that in my time,
I don't know of any.
Yeah.
and back in 1980, one-ish, I was in those seats asking for an exact same thing, and luckily we were able to pay ours off. So I don't need to sit here and say I get it, you know that, but I applaud you for what you're doing. I like the way that you're separating the two. I think that's smart, Jim.
Yeah, I worked with the mayor and Chris Nevin. He was very supportive of two things. One, keeping the facility on Main Street. And the second is to create an event center that can be used by available to the community for various meetings and so forth. I think it's something that the town needs. None of the financing is contingent on the sale of any of our properties that we have. We also hold that in reserve as necessary. The funding we have for the event center, which is completely separate from what we're asking here, this will only be used for the emergency operations center. We're doing that through a loan with F&M, and that's already secured as well.
Okay.
Just so
And
you
Mike,
know.
okay, and Mike, from your perspective, looking at the future, certainly this emergency operations part of this plan comes into play here.
Absolutely, and I commend Hampstead for their proactivity and their approach on the whole project, and it also considers our transition as we bring on county employees as career people. They're going to meet all the health and safety standards, which is going to be critical to our operations. So in my perspective, everything is in line and on board, and they're a very active company with fundraising, and certainly the enhancement of a separate activity center is going to provide a medium for even increasing what they do with fundraising.
With that, I'm going to move the Board of Commissioners approve the loan request for $1.5 million by the Hampstead Volunteer Fire and Hose Company Number 1, and adopt a resolution declaring the county's intent to reimburse expenditures and debt proceeds.
Second.
And I'm not sure I was around 1980. When the board
I
met,
thought
don't
Commissioner
think.
Wentz was still in school.
Weren't you like there with the Buffalo Nickel or something? I don't know. Okay. Any further discussion?
See where this went?
I'm down quick.
I didn't even offer up the picture from 1980 with us, Steve. I didn't even offer that up.
Is this when he
Probably a good idea on
Is this
your
when
part.
he had the mullet?
I'll pass on that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much, Jenny,
We
gentlemen.
look
Thank
forward
you.
to seeing you at the groundbreaking on the 4th.
Absolutely.
Thank
Well
you.
done.
April 4th?
April 4th, 5
April
p.m.
4th.
Yeah.
Yep, 2 weeks.
Nice
week and a
tie,
half.
by the way,
2
Director
weeks.
Robinson.
Okay.
For Maryland Day, yeah, nice tie.
Let's get an update on the Agricultural and Conservation Zoning Text Work Group.
Good morning. I'd like to see that mullet.
Okay,
Can
see.
we bring that back with the sacks?
Wow. Yeah, boy. Nice talking to you, Linda, thanks. Okay, next.
Oh, she lost her.
I know you're gonna-
Yeah, I know.
Oh, you heard the story?
I-
He's still salty about it.
Yeah, I know.
It's salty. There ain't no salt about it.
Well, on that note, good morning. I'm here with Price Wagner from our office to talk to you about the Agricultural Conservation Zoning Text Work Group. He, along with Hannah Weber, were the main facilitators, and Abigail Rogers, who is not with us here today. So as you know, since pretty much the last 4 years, we've been really working on plan implementation from the master plan, recodification of certain aspects of the zoning code for the commercial, industrial, employment campus districts, the residential districts, which we just completed, and now we are moving on to the ag and conservation. Price and Hannah and Abigail stood up a 6-month work group to discuss some of the challenges and opportunities within our ag zoning district. Commissioner Weaver attended many of those meetings and got some nice, good perspective from him. So today what we wanted to do is just give you a very high-level overview of that work group, where it ended up, where we are now, and where we'll be going, because this will be coming before you before the end of your term here for final resolution of any potential code changes. So with that, Price is just going to give you a quick presentation on what we did.
Will do. Good morning, Commissioners. Morning. Looking at this, as Linda said, we already went over the residential, commercial, industrial, and as this slide shows, that's roughly 11.6% of our land zoning use at 32,000 acres. The other two combined for almost 90% of our land, our zoning. So that agriculture and conservation are really large for the county for zoning wise. We had a work group, they met for 6 months, just finished up our last work group this month in March, last week. And we are actually meeting tomorrow, our concept team, that'll be our 3rd concept team meeting.
And that's the internal working group that has been bringing you the code with the planning commission changes.
So the work group made recommendations to concept team, which we're looking over those and taking those recommendations to look at how the text and all that aspect goes, any changes. And then, of course, we'll take that to the planning commission and then on to finally the planning commission will make recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners for final vote. As Linda said, the work group was made up of a lot of different areas. We had the Farm Bureau and Ag Pres Board, the board, Bar Association, the Maryland Ag Extension, Realtors Association, Grow and Fortify, as well as multiple agencies within the county. And also, we had somebody sitting with us from the Board of Zoning Appeals who gave a lot of good insight. So we looked over a bunch of different trends and challenges. The big ones that came about were contractor equipment storage, country inns, the commercial kennels. We wanted to look at solar energy again, anything about agritourism, which also falls in line with temporary and seasonal uses, commercial camping, and then accessory dwelling uses, both attached and detached. So contractor equipment storage, the big two things were looking at the variances, because there appeared to be a lot of variances that occurred. And we talked about introducing a minimum lot size, working and hoping to reduce those variances. And in consensus, and one other thing came about also was the screening requirements. The consensus did come about that if we increased the minimum lot size, then some of those variances would probably go away, because the majority of the variances did occur on lots that are 5 acres or less. Mm-hmm. So in the meantime, what we did was the work group recommended to introduce a minimum lot size of 5 acres. Indoor and outdoor contractor equipment storage will be treated the same, and we'll talk about this more internally with our concept team. And then finally, the screening requirements for residential uses and zones would align with requirements for industrial and public-private streets. So right now, screening for public and private streets and industrial are the most intensive, which is a full screen. Screen between residential uses and contract equipment storage is pretty much a 15-foot landscape strip that is not fully screened. So we're looking to align that because it made more sense to, why would you have more screening against roads and industrial versus against residential?
And that again is to, help minimize conflicts with the residences, and as Price said, within commercial industrial districts, we don't need as much because they're the same type of land use.
Exactly. So next was the country inns. The big one, distinguishing between country inns and bed and breakfast, as you can see in the two definitions below, they're relatively similar in definitions, with the caveat of the country inn at this time can provide catering facilities for banquets and that type of thing. We talked about creating a standalone use and definitions for the event facilities because requests are becoming more frequent where they're asking for country inns, but in actuality, they're looking to do event centers and wedding venues. So the recommendation is to combine the country inn and bed and breakfast uses into one use, one definition, and then to remove providing meals to non-guest requirements, pretty much not allowing for events and that type of thing in the bed and breakfast country inn aspect, and creating a new standalone use based on a definition we already have in our current code for what's considered, what is called catering establishments and banquet facilities, but I'm actually calling it now event and banquet facilities and making that a standalone use in our code. This new use would be closed to the public and invitation only, and we're looking to make it a conditional use in the ag zone and prohibited in the conservation zone. Those are the recommendations that were brought to from the work group to concept team.
So, there's a fine line between closed to the public and invitation only. What you mean?
So it would be like an invitation only type of event. So you couldn't have like a Friday night open mic night open to the public that would be ticketed, for instance. But you could have a wedding or some type of other, anniversary party or things like that, which would be closed to the public because it's a private rental.
Okay, and that also goes to the B&Bs, I would.
No, that's what we're saying.
Okay, so you're gonna
eliminate that from country inn and bed and breakfast, combine them as one. Yep.
Okay.
So make this a standalone use.
Got it. Okay.
From those two, correct.
Because people weren't really following. We knew the intent was not to have a country inn or a bed and breakfast when they came through. The intent was really to have these event facilities. So let's just again call it what it is and give the permission for what it is.
Yep.
Correct.
Okay.
So we talked about commercial kennels, but looking at should we introduce a minimum lot size, and the neighbors do receive complaint due to dogs barking, but is that a zoning issue? In actuality, it's not really a zoning issue that we can work with. So commercial kennels, we did talk about it, but again, the work group final recommendation was no changes at this time. Leave it as is. Things seem to be working well, and we'll go from there. Agritourism and seasonal uses. Some of the challenges were, how can we encourage agritourism and seasonal uses in the zoning code? And should agritourism be defined in the code, and how will we implement the definition in the code? Again, we had, talks about this, and at this point in time, the work group decided, let's leave it as is, and no changes are recommended for agritourism and seasonal uses as they are today in our code for our conservation and agriculture.
How long did it take you to make that map with all the quilts?
That was actually made by Abigail.
Okay. Very nice.
It was fun.
I like
She
the
had a lot-
pumpkins.
She had a lot of fun.
Yeah,
doing
she
it.
did have a lot of fun, sort of making
Us
it.
crazy planners, sometimes we have fun with our maps.
I think it's a nice touch.
This is not a Ted Zaleski presentation.
This is not a Ted Zaleski presentation.
Again, we looked at commercial campgrounds, and at this point in time, commercial camping is currently a conditional use in the ag zoning and not permitted in the conservation zone. We talked again in length about this and decided at this time the work group decided this time, no changes are recommended at all for commercial camping.
And the reason we discussed that is because we've had a lot of inquiries for what they call hip camps. So basically, you go to someone's property and you pitch a tent or you rent their yurt on site that they have brought in, but it's not an official camping. It's more kind of on a Airbnb camping basis, so to speak. And we do allow it for 1 or 2 sites on a property, but beyond that, you really do need a site plan to come in. So we allow commercial camping, you just have to come in with a site plan.
Okay.
And get those approvals. And we felt for the health, safety, welfare of having potable water, meeting health department requirements, that wouldn't necessarily happen if we made this approved without coming in with the site plan for those types of uses.
Even with the fact that there would only be maybe a size or the amount of folks that are engaged in that. In other words, if I have a farm and I have 3 people that want to camp, and there's a farm down the street that has 20 people that want to camp, you didn't make any difference between the amount of folks that are allowed.
No, we just kept the standard at 2. If you want to go beyond 2, you have to come in with a site plan. And that's just the recommendation for now. Concept team is reviewing this.
Okay.
But the work group felt it works. And beyond that, that is site plan. You should come in to make sure you have adequate water, you have adequate road infrastructure, because then who's to say 3 wouldn't turn into 20, and how would we know that?
Well, I understand that, but who's to say that 3's
Yeah, and they're
worse
all
than 2?
arbitrary numbers, right? Well, they're arbitrary numbers, so it's all arbitrary.
That's kind of where I was going with my line of questioning. So
Yeah.
I think once P&Z gets this, you'll probably hear some
Absolutely.
engagement from a couple people that are kind of involved in that at this point, to maybe tweak that number a little bit. I don't know.
Actually, they discussed quite all of this at great length, and arguments for and against, and he actually did a great job on these, I must say, and those topics have all been pretty much addressed here, and so when I think P&Z gets it, you're gonna get some input, but it'll come back.
Yeah, it will, because what you didn't include was people that are actually engaged in that at this point, right?
We did not have specific, we had others we wanted to pick organizations as opposed to people for this
and that's fine,
particular
right.
effort.
So that's my last point on this. I don't want to complicate it. Anyway.
But we did take their comments into consideration
Okay.
and did show them to the group, and we did discuss those comments multiple times.
But to be clear, the steps ahead will include perhaps someone that wants to come in and discuss that.
Absolutely, and that would be part of that public process, the next phase.
Right. Yes. Okay.
So, I don't know about 3, but 1 is not as good as 2. If we're
Thanks.
3 dog night,
Thank you.
just saying.
Yeah, thanks. 3 Dog Night? I remember that.
1, it's a very lonely number.
Yeah.
Then, next we talked about solar energy, and this was just sort of should we expand community solar in the ag district? And, the consensus was, after everything that was done with our community solar ordinance in the code, leave as is, no recommendations are made for solar energy at this time.
And we didn't have anything to really base that on, because the pilot study, no one's come through. I think they're just coming forward now. So we didn't even know how well the pilot study worked, but felt since this is such an emerging topic, we wanted to just make sure we acknowledged it again.
Yeah, there's quite a few jurisdictions that are really looking at this now. The county executive of Montgomery County was sitting 2 seats down from me yesterday, and they're actually actively engaged in looking at how they can put solar over top of ag and what that means.
Agri-solar, I think I saw some legislation
so they're
being
coming
proposed.
up with they're actively working on a plan now that addresses that in their county.
Yep.
So it's sort of a topic of discussion at MACO when you go around the room.
Oh, absolutely. We knew that, so we brought that legislation to, we explained it to the best of our ability to the work group, talked about that co-location of ag and solar, and what does this mean, and my understanding, no expert on it, but that we don't have enough of the commercial industrial, so that's what they're saying, to meet the future clean energy demands of Maryland. So thought that we needed to look at this too. So right now, we just feel it's just not the time for us to explore it any further.
Okay.
But we might have to in the future, and we should, so we'll see.
Yeah, there was a solar plan up in my district that was brought up, and
Mhm.
they started to do community outreach, and it stopped.
Yep.
So,
And those are community solar. And so it's different. We
Right.
have community, which is our
Totally
pilot
different.
study, and then
Right.
there's the, energy conversion facilities, which is in the industrial and
Right.
commercial district.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, something I did not know, community solar is not under the PSC. The PSC has left that up to local jurisdictions. That's where we still have some local land use control, where you don't with the energy generating. That
Yeah.
is under the PSC.
yeah, so I guess that was, I want to make sure it's being addressed
Yeah.
here too, because I don't know what happened up there,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a pretty large project, and all of a
Mhm.
sudden, after they started to
Yeah.
engage with the community up there, it just went,
Mhm. Yep.
so, I don't
That's
know.
what's happening.
Yeah,
statewide.
yeah.
Yeah.
It happens. So the next big area we looked into was accessory dwelling units, both attached and detached. And the challenges we looked at were, is our code too restrictive? And should detached accessory dwelling units be able to be rented out? And what we sort of came up with is, when it comes to attached, the biggest thing is just add the as part of the definition that access is via a heated or cooled livable space. At this time, it just says separated, which doesn't give a distinct length, and it needs to. And as Jay says, requirements for it to be enclosed and heated and or cooled is sort of the best way to put it, to make sure it's just not a breezeway that has windows, that is not a year-round type room. So to add that aspect, to just put one more layer of clarity into our attached. Now, when it comes to the detached, there was no consensus, and there was considerable disagreement on how to proceed with detached accessory dwellings. Obviously, as the code is today, they're allowed. The land has to be subdivided, and there is no limit on the size of the detached accessory dwelling. But after that, there was, again, no consensus at all to.
And let me clarify that. That's because it's a subdividable property, so you could have 2 units on it anyway. So it doesn't matter how big or small. It doesn't matter if it's accessory or primary. And that was the big discussion. What was being discussed for an accessory is just as it says it was secondary to the primary principal use of a home, that the secondary unit would be smaller, secondary, and not a full housing unit, but could house a person or a couple, but not a family. It wasn't meant as an additional full dwelling.
And the problem comes in the next owner of the home. If they have an in-law apartment and they want to use it as a rental apartment, and it just becomes a whole host of issues down the road.
So that's sort of, nothing was brought forward for the detached, and sort of that's where we are. Concept team may talk about it a little bit more, but again, right now, the recommendation to concept team is sort of no consensus at all.
And that was actually brought up in the legislative session this year too, was in districts that allow residences to allow accessory dwelling units. Not sure where that ended up just yet. Maker hasn't given a final say on that, but that was something that was brought up. So I would contemplate this will be brought up again, in future years if something doesn't get passed this year with that as a requirement.
And then we looked at the conservation zone more, along about the purpose of it, of what our conservation zone, what we want it to actually be. And the biggest thing is, should we use the conservation district, should the uses of the conservation district be reevaluated? That more align with the purpose note that is here, which is pretty much lands that are for conservation, woodland areas, wildlife, natural resources, steep slopes, that type of thing. So in general, they brought forward to reevaluate the conservation zone land use. So that's something concept team will do to align more with conservation land and environmental restrictions that we have now, versus some of the things that are allowed in conservation, which don't appear to align with the way our purpose note looks. And with that going, clustering is also one of the options in conservation when it comes to residential. We do allow clustering in the conservation zone. Minimum lot size is 1 acre. Of course, just like with any clustering, the total number of dwellings cannot exceed what normally go on the lot if you don't cluster. And then, we're looking to hopefully minimize the residential size of the lot and increase the actual open space areas. So the recommendation is to mandate clustering in the conservation zone, but allow a variance to be requested if a developer wishes not to cluster. And right now, I believe the clustering is optional, but in the conservation zone, but now this is to mandate it, and then if a developer comes in, no, they'll have to do their due diligence to say why they shouldn't have to cluster. And this is just a review of the topics we talked about. So contract equipment storage and the recommendations, the country inns, event and banquet facilities, which is now a new standalone use. And you'll see, some of these do have work group recommendations and some of them do not. And as I said, I went over those beforehand, so this is just the final review of them. So all the recommendations that I did talk about are listed in this slide. And this is the timeline we're looking for. So we have 5 concept team meetings to refine work group recommendations. We've already started those. In April, looking to do 2 planning commission meetings. The first is to introduce and brief the planning commission sort of what's been going on. And then on the 19th, get with the planning commission and talk with them about any concerns of discussions that have arisen. Then June through August, 4 planning commission work sessions on proposed draft legislation. They will hopefully in August transmit that to their recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners. In September and October, we'll do our Board of County Commissioner work sessions. In late October, a public hearing. And then looking in November for the Board of County Commissioners to adopt the new ordinance.
Let's stick to that timeline, please.
Our goal is we would like this done, and we think it's the best to have it done under this board so that you have seen that through from start to finish.
I agree.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if we can go faster, we will, but I'd rather under promise and over deliver and get things to you sooner if we can, but this would hopefully be the worst case scenario.
The work session, did you have community a part of the work session, the work groups, or no?
Not general community, we
No,
like specific
okay.
organizations.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
That's to
Yeah.
come.
Okay.
Yeah. But that will, as we progress,
Yeah.
that will become
Yeah.
more of.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I just want to be clear.
Yeah, because I know there's going to be a
Yep.
hip camper that's coming into.
I have no doubt. No doubt.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much
Thank
for
you
your
very
time
much.
this morning.
Thank you.
Good job. Okay. War of a contract to Ruling Associates Incorporated to perform testing and inspection services for the Charles Carroll Community Center project.
I'll make a motion that we, too soon?
Hot out of the gate.
Okay. Gentlemen,
Last week was the free lunch. Good morning, Commissioners. We appreciate your time this morning to meet with us. Joining me today is our Director, Jeff Castaway, and our Project Manager for Charles Carroll Community Center, Kirk Engel. We're here before you this morning to request your approval to award a contract to Ruling Associates, Inc., a geotechnical engineering firm that will perform construction-related materials, inspections, and testing for the Charles Carroll Community Center project. This scope of work is an owner responsibility and obligation to make sure that the work being performed is being performed in accordance to the approved construction drawings, architectural plans, and specifications. We're in the early stages of site construction, and we will be requiring the inspection and testing services within the next 5 to 10 working days. The testing and inspection scope was bid to 3 of our term contractors, Ruling Associates, KCI Technologies, and Wallace Montgomery. Wallace Montgomery was not able to meet our schedule and provide us with the appropriate staff, and KCI Technologies did not meet the full intent and scope of the work, and their rates and testing costs were a bit higher than Ruling. So based on those three conditions, we would recommend awarding this contract to Ruling Associates. And we're happy to answer any questions or thoughts you may have this morning.
Have we worked with them before?
Yes, we have.
I want to make a motion. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Why's everybody looking at me? All right, now I'll make the motion that we approve the Bureau of Building Construction to award contract to Ruling Associates in the amount of $32,933 for testing and inspection services at the community center on Route 97.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and second. Any discussion? Seeing here none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, let's
Thank you, commissioners, for your time
Thank
this
you,
morning.
gentlemen.
Sure.
Any dirt being moved around up there?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's good.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes,
There's been a,
things are moving along well.
yeah, good.
Good.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
It's a safe place to dispose of a body.
Okay. Gentlemen, why don't you come on up, seeking request the approval to use the current term contract for construction inspection services.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
So, Chris Sinatra, our Bureau Chief of Engineering, and I are before you today to request to use a term contract for our construction inspection services to supplement existing staff. So, because of present vacancies, we can't meet our current workload, and we are obviously getting heavy into construction season. So I'll let Chris brief you on what the plan is, should you approve.
We currently have 3 of our 5 inspection positions vacant at the time, and as Doug mentioned, our construction season is taking off. Unfortunately, with the rain today, we're not doing anything, but we've been already working hard. We reviewed the resume from an individual that Wallace Montgomery provided us, and we believe he's a good fit for our group. We anticipate this position starting early to mid-April, as soon as our pipe replacement contract starts. With the open positions that we have, we'll probably be back again for once our pavement contracts start. We've got another one closing at the end of the month, plus very large bridge project coming here towards the end of spring, early summer.
What's the current salaries of the inspectors?
$44,700.
So we're putting $120,000.
Yeah, we're looking for this for 6 months.
So we're looking at $60,000 for 6 months,
A little bit over, yes.
while we're paying 40-some odd thousand for inspectors.
Yes, sir.
That's correct.
I was going to say, we have been diligently trying to recruit. We have held interviews. We have made offers, and they've been rejected based on
Of
salary.
course.
Yeah. So,
I mean, I would too if I'm getting $120,000.
yeah.
You know.
Yeah. We.
Is this a Wallace Montgomery? Is it a company or is it an individual?
So we have a term contract with Wallace Montgomery. They hire staff to provide a consultant, inspector for us.
So Wallace Montgomery is a staffing organization?
They are
They're in-
a company that provides these services throughout the region in a multitude of counties and jurisdictions. Like you just heard, our folks ahead of us for the construction project that they're doing, Wallace Montgomery just simply couldn't meet their schedule with the people that they wanted on site. That is a key part. In a current person that we're using right now for traffic engineering, for example, we had to work with them to work out a schedule when that individual wasn't working other jobs for that company, that they could come in and do our job. So yes, it is a company, and they provide services throughout the
Where are
throughout
they
the nation.
headquartered? Do you know?
They're in Cockeysville.
Yeah.
So
I mean, got to figure out how to live within our means. I'm looking forward to the second part of the compensation of the single stay, but this is painful when we're,
Yeah.
looking at a 200+%,
Yeah.
number. Ted?
Feels good to be back at the mic again. This is part of that list of problems, ongoing, growing problems that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's, we've been here before with unable to hire and needing to contract out. And we've talked before, there are times when we evaluate, is it better for us to contract out or have an employee? But these things are not that. This is, we're left with no choice.
Right.
And in this last year, we've seen kind of an explosion of being forced into these situations. So nobody's happy with this. We don't want to do this. And we have hopes that whatever comes out of the work that we're doing now and thinking about compensation and classification will relieve the pressure. Still might not make all this go away because we're still going to be left in situations where private sector, what they're going to offer certain positions is just beyond anything that we're ever going to do. But for the time being, my observation is this is just that we don't have any choice.
Right.
However painful it feels, it's just how we need to move ahead.
No, I understand. I feel like we're painted into a corner. So, we've used them before, obviously.
Yeah, we've used them. We actually asked for one of the inspectors we had before from
Yeah.
that firm,
Okay.
and he's tied up on another year and a half long project, so they went and found us another candidate. So
Within the contract, we have the ability to make appropriate adjustments if they don't work out
yes,
and don't meet the scope of the work.
yes,
Absolutely, we reserve the right to do whatever if they're not
Okay.
doing the job that we expect them to do.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, there's no choice in the matter, is there?
Sorry.
Got to do it.
So I'll make the motion that we approve the use of the term contract with Wallace Montgomery in the amount of $2,400 per week for up to 6 months.
Second.
Okay, got a motion, a couple of seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing here none, all in favor?
Aye.
Good job, gentlemen.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Commissioners.
I think I'll see you later on today. So. Okay. Please review summary of closed minutes from March 17th, Thursday, March 17th, on land acquisition.
I move to approve.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion, I got a second regarding the closed minutes on March 17th. Any discussion? Seeing here none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Chris, do we have any callers?
no callers on the line.
Okay, thank you. Open admin? Do you have anything? I have one.
No, I don't have anything.
I got one item. It's been brought to my attention that, it's happening, where I'm getting phone calls or texts or emails of folks that are, it's like they're coming out of their houses and they're looking around and they're not happy with their neighbors. They're not happy with their neighbors' yards or their driveways or something that's, showing concern, and they're saying, I don't like this. And I said, well, you can file a complaint. I don't want to file it with my name because of retribution and concerns. So they want the level of anonymity, to be there. I said, well, that is not within our policy. It is not a law, but that's our policy. And it's up to us to make the appropriate adjustments if we choose to, or however, with permits, it's a little bit different in the sense that although we don't take anonymous complaints, if it's seen by the road, then permits can actually take action on it because there's safety involved when you're talking more about permits. And that's been done. Although not like to be done, that is done. This is not necessarily that. This is, I see 3 or 4 vehicles without license plates stored in the driveway. I have the grass. I have, garbage, whatever it may be. I want to be able to respond to, the community. And I'm telling you, I'm getting calls from just lots of different folks. I don't believe we should be putting our name onto it because we're
I
not
have.
making the call. Right, so.
I have as well.
So do you
I've done it a
think,
couple times over the last 7 years.
so you think that's the best,
I'm not saying it's the best.
Yeah.
But,
because I'll do it, I just want,
yeah, but,
whatever.
well, I'll wait till you're done with your presentation.
No, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, I've brought this up before.
Yeah.
And I think the challenge for us is if we do open it up for anonymous, it's just gonna be a huge undertaking that we just do not have the staff for. And I'll give you the primary example of most of the complaints that I get that have to go through the zoning department. And, what's Jay have? 2 inspectors or something? 1.5?
Himself, 2 others, and
And-
an administrative
And
person.
it just, while I'd love to do it, and create that anonymity, I think it's, until we can beef up staff to handle it, I just think it's a huge challenge for us.
So is it a resource thing, or is it is your
I
concern
think it's
about-
resource driven.
Okay, that's in,
Lack
okay.
of.
Okay, because that's different than where I was going. I
Yeah.
was, looking at, not necessarily resource driven, but I was looking at somebody who, is called on the carpet about something. They should know who is calling them out.
Yeah, and the other thing that's been told to me before is, okay, so if you do allow anonymity, now you've created a situation where there's just gonna be call after call after call about silly things that we really shouldn't be getting involved in from a government standpoint. Have you talked to your neighbor? Well, no.
That's
Well,
right.
why don't you try that first? Instead of just immediately, boom, I don't like the way he cuts his grass. Okay, well, I mean, that's a little over the top, but you see where I'm going.
Oh,
I
but
just-
But that does happen.
It does, and that, I've had it with noise, I've had it with storage trailers, I've had it with unlicensed vehicles. I mean, the list goes on, and you get inundated, and I just don't know that we have the resources to handle that. Now, with that being said, if we're taking a look at organizational overview here, perhaps maybe we could get into a place where we could allow that to occur. But I'm trying to be respectful of staff, and that's what's been,
Any jurisdiction that you see so far that it allows it to be anonymous, it is just
yeah,
people dedicated to it because of the calls about every little thing. And, I don't mind, if somebody calls me, I don't mind looking into the issue on it. And that solves our problem here because
Yeah.
we have a good form of government. We're very close to the people in our district. So they have somebody to go to that we can look into. And if it's a call about, a squirrel running up a tree next to them, we can't do much about that.
Or a chipmunk.
Or chipmunk, yeah. But if it's legitimate, we have the ability to take care of it at this point. And I know some of them are ridiculous, but
I get it.
you have, if it's a major concern, you have to put your name to it.
Okay.
I had one last week, and I attached my name because I was told, reminder, Steve, can't be anonymous. I'm like, okay, put my name on it.
I've been told
So,
that.
I did it.
I've been told that several times over the years.
Well, yeah, but who's pointing fingers?
Yeah,
She's not paying attention.
I don't like the idea of anyone calling in and not leaving their name with complaints, because then that's just gonna get blown out of hand, in my opinion. And you have people that'll be their job to go around the neighborhood and make phone calls. I just don't like that at all. So I think if it's serious, I mean, I've had these calls, as we all have, I check into it myself, and I get back to the person and say, you know what, I'll put my name on the complaint if you don't want to.
You check into it yourself?
I do, I drive by.
Got it.
And all it is a drive-by. For complaints I get, it's,
Yeah,
I drive
that's right.
by, I look to
Okay.
see what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You know what, you're right, this is not really not good, or it's not, I wouldn't want to live next to this particular property either.
Yeah.
I put my name on it.
Okay.
We had one, well, maybe that's, are you talking about a specific location?
Not, no.
Okay, because you and I got involved in one of those, Dick.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it just,
No, it's all good, and,
Yeah.
and so I am not.
That's part of our
looking-
job.
I'm not looking at swaying one way or the other. I just wanted to get your insight.
yeah,
You know,
The,
if it really gets
the
out of
latest,
hand,
it was
I'm sorry.
it was a woman, I would imagine, 80s, late 70s, 80s, you know, very concerned, and she just sounded it. And she was appreciative that I called her back, you know, and she told me her story. I'm like, okay, I got it. Let me, you know, think this one through. There's no promises. But yeah, it's not, I have no problem putting my name to something. I just wanted to know the rationale that you had, and that's good.
If it gets really bad, I tell them to call Weaver.
It hasn't been, yeah, we get some calls occasionally, but it's really not outrageous. I mean, and you, like you said, there was this elderly lady is concerned.
Yep.
We look into those and handle them. And I can understand where she would come from.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's part of our job. I got it. I just wanted to get your thoughts.
yeah.
So,
And if it really needs to be addressed, attach your name to
Yeah.
it. And then you'll get something that, you know, I mean, it might not be in your favor, but at least you'll get,
yeah.
then you'll get the next level of, oh, okay, here we go. So-
And a lot of times, now I do get, just whatever the issue is, talk to the person.
Mhm.
It solves the issue most of the time. And I go out of my way to stop and do that. I know probably against legal advice sometimes, but the issue can get solved.
Yeah, well, the last three I had, they called me and told me that Weaver said, and I said, well, that's all wrong.
Well, I refer them to you many times.
See, here's the problem.
Once again, one is the loneliest number. Okay. Closed minutes we deal with.
25 or 6 to 4.
Why don't you come on up?
Does anybody really know what time it is?
Just check my watch.
It's time to get these things done.
Oh, okay, so.
Lunchtime.
Okay, we ready, Wanda?
Yes.
Okay, March 28th, there is nothing scheduled. March 29th, on Tuesday, we have agency hearings, starting at 09, and then following up at 1 p.m. At 6 p.m., a walk in the park at Cape Horn,
I think I'll be.
Hampstead, Commissioner Boucher, and
It is
Weaver.
1.5. I'm
I'll
gonna
be
try, but
attending.
I got another thing that I might not get
It's
there.
on the other side of the line, but
I know, it's 1.5.
On Wednesday, Planning Commission, 6 p.m. It's a special Planning Commission.
it's
My
gonna be
intent,
special.
yeah, my intent is to attend, but Commissioner Wance will definitely be there, representing the county. Thursday, we have closed 8, 9. We go into open. A handful of topics so far. Legislative update, recommended FY23 water and sewer rate. FY22 walk, it's a information briefing on the Walk Carol events in the county parks. A request to revise format of public notice signs. Okay. Construction inspection services for the Sykesville, Maryland 851, which is their Main Street, Springfield Avenue Water and Sewer Main Improvement Project. Good. Construction inspection services, again
That's
for
on there
851. What's that? Yeah, why is it
No,
on
it's
there
different.
twice?
It's
Same thing?
different. It is? Oh.
It's a big item.
No, it's the
It's
same.
different.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, one's
I
Springfield,
apologize.
the other
One's
one's
the
Main Street.
corner, it's Springfield Ave, the other is Main Street. So it's the corner of Springfield and Main Street. Got it. Department of Management and Budget, FY23 hearings at 11. And then 1 p.m., we have more budget hearings. Friday morning, Commissioner Frazier, Wance, Weaver, and I will be attending the Sheriff's Police Correctional Training Academy.
I will also be attending.
So the 5 of us will be attending, then Battle of the Books at 6:30 p.m. at Gerstel Academy. Commissioner Frazier will be attending. On Saturday, the Christian Farmers Outreach Spring Luncheon. Commissioner Boucher will be attending. I thought, Commissioner Frazier, you were attending
I
as
thought
well.
I was, yeah, I'll have to check, but put me down for that. I'm pretty sure I responded to that.
If you don't show, I'll eat your
So-
share of the food.
That later afternoon, Union Bridge Fire Department Banquet and Awards, Commissioner Boucher will be attending. Person of the Year, Maryland Motor Truck Association at the Antrim up in Tonytown, Commissioner Wentz will be attending. I'll be doing the podcast for that week. On April 4th, wow. Monday, 11 a.m., the Hampstead Volunteer Fire Company groundbreaking. Commissioner Frazier, Wance, and I will be attending that.
And Weaver.
And Weaver. I fear you, yeah. So the 4 of us will be attending.
Wait a minute, you're going to Hampstead, Weaver?
On Tuesday, any more rude interruptions? I don't think so. Okay, Tuesday, April 5th, 9 a.m.,
Maybe.
budget work sessions. At 1 p.m., budget work sessions. Wednesday, April 6th, Planning Commission in person. Wait a second. I am not attending that. That's all Commissioner Wentz.
Excuse me.
What?
I'd really like you to be there too
No,
for that.
it's all you.
Moral
6
support.
p.m., absolutely not.
Actually, we need to switch that around.
Why?
No, never mind. Never mind. It's not on the schedule. There's an ESAC meeting that night as well.
Oh, it's the special one.
It's the
right.
special one that they've
Oh.
called for, after they see staffing presentations at one of our agency hearings.
But aren't you going to?
Can you go, let's verify. I want
So the 6th?
the
Yeah.
6th at 7 p.m. at the Public Safety Training Center. Can you do, or 7 o'clock, Dick, at the PST. Can you do that one?
Yeah.
Okay. Put that one. That's an
Have to add ESAC.
ESAC meeting, Wanda.
Yeah, that's right. I knew there was some. Thursday, April 7th, we go into open session. Mr. Fowler will start us off, and then we have the annual plan for fiscal year 2022, Carroll County Bureau of Housing. Ms. Steckel will be presenting. Locust Wetland Stormwater Management Facility. Mr. Hine will be presenting. Department of Management and Budget will be, it's a backup FY23. This may or may not happen. Proposed budget work session. Let's see how far we can get. And same thing in the afternoon. FY23 proposed budget work session. Battle of the Books at the Montessori School, 6:30 p.m. in Westminster. Commissioner Frazier will be attending. On Friday, Tawnytown Business Breakfast at the Thunderhead Bowl and Grill. Commissioner Wentz will be attending. And then he'll be attending the Francis Scott Key High School Battle of the Books. Commissioner Wentz. Saturday, April 9th,
The Ohio State.
Big Country Breakfast at the Career and Tech Center. Commissioner Boucher and Frazier will be attending. McDaniel installation of Julia Jaskin, the new president, installation of President Julia Jaskin. Commissioner Frazier is attending. Okay. 6 p.m., there'll be a reception for the new president at McDaniel. And again, Commissioner Frazier will be representing us.
Get your tux out. It's black tie, baby.
Oh, that's right, April 9th. And I will be attending,
Have a black suit.
I will be attending the Fort Meade Alliance Stars in Service Gala, which is a black tie tux event. So I will be in a tux that evening.
I wasn't talking to you.
I am, but I'm going there that evening. I
Just
knew
make
there
sure
was a
everybody knows,
reason.
I do not have a tux. I will not be wearing a
I
tux
do
in the
have a
event.
tux.
Just put it out there.
Put a bow tie on. You'll be fine. Bow tie.
And then Commissioner Wentz will provide the podcast on April 10th.
I may talk about tuxes.
Is there anything else? Did I miss anything? Seeing here none, I need a motion to go, are we going into closed?
No.
No.
Not
We're
today.
Adjourn.
No safe
adjourn. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion in a couple seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Against?
No.